First order of business this morning, we have a public hearing, a few public hearings. Our first public hearing this morning is in regards to zoning amendment bylaw 4370 for cannabis. Brenda, could I get you to?
Good morning, Your Worship.
Good morning.
This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone that may be affected by the proposed amendment to the city's zoning bylaw. Bylaw number 4370 includes a definition for cannabis and states that no person shall use any land or building for the production, distribution, or sale of cannabis, except the production of cannabis as permitted as a designated farm use on land designated as agricultural land reserve. And there were no comments received regarding the notice.
Thank you. So, and no correspondence or delegations?
There was none.
Thank you. So I'll call for a first time for any comments. And a second time for any comments. And a third time for any comments. Thank you. We'll close the public hearing on that bylaw. Our next public hearing this morning is in regards to our manufactured home park bylaw number 4368. Brenda?
This public hearing is being held to hear from anyone that may be affected by the proposed amendment to the city's manufactured home park bylaw. Amendments proposed within this bylaw include removing all references to requiring a manufactured home park permit, as a business license is required to operate it, requiring compliance with CSA Z240 standard with homes constructed in 1992 or later, requiring compliance with the city's subdivision and developing servicing bylaw instead of listing engineering specifications separately, and requiring a water meter to be installed at the property line of the manufactured home park. And there was one response that was received prior to the agenda, and there was two more responses received just this morning that staff was not able to include on the agenda. So we can either refer these to the next meeting, refer to staff, or could read them out. And I believe Alex had mentioned that she would like some time to review the questions.
Okay, so they're the ones we did receive. Is there any responses to those, or do you want to just do them as a bunch?
Maybe we want to read them out, or if
Sure.
the individuals want to come down, and then we can.
Well,
we
I
can
was
do
thinking about the ones we've already received. Is there?
Yeah, the one we already received, I'm wondering if Alex wants to speak to that one. It's, I believe that Kevin had responded to this person last week.
Okay, so we've got the two we received just this morning. The ladies are in the gallery this morning, but I understand that they prefer not to come up to the microphone, and I completely understand that. And so because staff haven't had an opportunity to review them, I wouldn't mind though if we can, Duncan, read through some of them and see if we can answer some of the pertinent stuff this morning for the benefit of not only the ladies that are here, but for the media that are here recording as well. So perhaps we'll start with the first one for Rosalind Schmidt, and if we can go through those and quickly identify if there are some that we can provide a response to this morning. Do you want to read them, or do you want me to?
Sure, I can do that. I am concerned about the proposed bylaw number 4368 because what if your trailer is older than 1992? How will mobile homeowners be able to claim their exemptions on their taxes? How would the trailer park owners, Mile Zero trailer park owner, assess how much water, sewer was used by the individuals? And if passed, when would this new bylaw come into effect? Those were the 4 questions.
Thank you. And the second letter?
The second letter, and it's cut off as to the name. So I'll just read the questions. How will new bylaw requiring homes to comply with CSA Z240 standard be constructed in 1992 or later apply to old homes already in park? Does the city's subdivision and development servicing bylaw also apply to old residents in the park or just to new developments? With the water meter installed at the property line of the manufactured park, how is the individual usage going to be monitored? The management would probably have come up with an average I'm assuming, and billed everyone the same amount. But this is not fair for someone who use hardly any. They will be paying for the ones who use the water indiscriminately. This is also going to end up being the same for the taxes. Next question. With paid rent being increased continuously, it is already becoming too much for most to afford on top of the utilities and taxes. So ultimately, this is why they are not getting paid. Anyone new moving into the park is having to pay $500 per month, right from the start, and this should include services such as water and sewage and garbage disposal. But we have been being charged for utilities and taxes on top of pad rent even though we don't even own the land. We pay rent like all other renters in town. Do they have to pay these service utility bills and taxes as well? No, they don't. Not fair. Is it even legal for owners to charge us individually for their bills? Does this require a new contractual agreement between renter and owner? Ultimately, with this new bylaw, it makes the owner become responsible for paying the utility bills and taxes. If he then turns around and allocates the dividend bill amongst the renters for recovering this incurred expense, it will ultimately be the ones who were originally already paying who will end up footing the bill for the unrecovered portion of unpaid bills and taxes. Unfair. Is the owner legally entitled to collect taxes from said renter? Seems like there might be some confusion as to what is legal or allowed in this gray area, renters on owner's land. City is putting responsibility on owner, but the renters might be the ones paying more in the end because of this switch. We would like to pay for our own usage, not for the neighbors' overusage. Ultimately, owner should pay. Is it even legal for the city to be charging individuals on private land for their own water usage and taxes when they don't own the land? Do renters in apartments have to pay for water infrastructure and sewer infrastructure? We are renters in the trailer park too. We do not own the land. Is it legal for the city to be charging renters for the landowner bills? These are many questions that need to be addressed with regards to changing any kind of billings and bylaws. All these questions must be considered. The people in the trailer park have an agreement with the management already that says, regarding plumbing and sewer, anything above ground we pay for, anything under the ground the management owner pays for. And then we have the city come along and start charging us with all these infrastructure costs. Not fair. Taxes should be paid for that, not renters.
Thank you, Brenda. And so, obviously, we haven't had an opportunity to have staff review these and provide the response, but we absolutely will. Duncan?
So through your worship, Alex can come up to the delegation table and talk a little bit in general about it. There's still some questions in here that we've just received, but she can answer a number of these questions and just talk in general about the other email received as well.
Perfect. Thank you.
Morning. So all questions related to trailers that are already in the park that are older than 1992, they'll be grandfathered in. The basis of this bylaw is for all new trailer development moving forward. We'll have to follow our subdivision servicing bylaw and cannot be older than 1992, so it does not apply to the trailers already in the park or the infrastructure already in the park. This is just to deal with the expansion of the park. In terms of water metering, so currently the utility bills and taxes are billed directly to the residents, and we've been having problems with collection. So future park extensions will require the city to bill the park's property owner for utilities. So any new parks moving forward, the water meter will be located at the property line, but it doesn't affect current mobile home parks.
Yeah, so through your worship, many of the questions were about existing. This new bylaw wouldn't apply to the existing mobile home owners. One of the challenges we faced in the past was that because we were billing the mobile homes individually and the mobile homes did not own the property in which they sit on, often there's a pad rental, we're unable to recoup any fees that aren't paid through the land or on taxes. And so in putting it on the landowner, gives us that ability, if there's an unpaid bill, to put that back on the landowner and through those taxes. But again, this is for new subdivisions moving forward. As far as the structure and how the mobile home park owner will structure that, whether it'll be a pad rental or if they'll have meters, I don't know how. That'll be up to them to decide how they'd like to administer that.
Thank you. Thank you. So we will provide a written response to these questions and the input we have received. And ladies, we appreciate you coming in this morning and giving us the input, and we will answer your questions in writing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
We kind of knew that it was the older renters are okay, but when we move to one of the new parks, you know, it would affect everybody in a sense.
Yeah, and the issue for the city is that water and sewer usage applies to the consumption. And so if somebody uses the water and sewer, they should pay it. If they don't pay
Oh, I
it,
agree. And we pay-
the city attaches it to the property. And if the mobile home leaves the property, we have, and it's to that owner, we have no right way to enforce the collection of that outstanding debt. And it got very significant in terms of the amount of outstanding debts we had on water and sewer utilities for mobile home owners. So that's why we're reconsidering the bylaw. So anyway, thank you so much for coming in. We will answer the questions for you, and we will give an answer to you in writing, and staff will have a chance to do that over the coming week.
Thank you.
Thanks, so. Any other correspondence or delegations, Brenda?
No, that was it. And I just wanted to mention that this bylaw is just being provided third reading at this meeting, so
Right.
there's still time if
For-
anyone has other concerns.
Thank you. For first time for comments? For a second time for comments? And the third time for comments? We'll close this public hearing. So we'll now move to our regular meeting of council for Monday, April 16th. First order of business, new councilor business, Councilor Rogers.
Good morning, everybody. I move that the city of Dawson Creek request the Peace River Regional District to undertake a feasibility study for an indoor field house for the use by residents within northeast British Columbia.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder for that motion? Councilor Javetkov, discussion? Councilor Rogers?
I'll just fire off here. I'll give everybody a little brief, what my intent for all of this is northeast British Columbia, because we have 7 months of winter apparently this year, and it's about the health of the community as well. We're in northern British Columbia, we're not as healthy as the folks down in southern British Columbia because we don't walk as much, we don't exercise as much, we don't have the opportunity to do all of that. Our sports groups suffer because the provincial championships and stuff like that are all around May and June. We don't even see, we're not even able to get on our fields and stuff like that. So an indoor field house, there was one done a feasibility study was done for Black Diamond, High River, Okotoks, Turner Valley, the Foothills Regional District. So that was undertaken by the whole region, and that's what I'm looking at for our region is an indoor field house. So what they'll do is they'll look up the community regional profile, a needs assessment and analysis, facility programming, location analysis, business and financial analysis, governance, operating structures analysis, and recommendations, corporate support analysis and recommendations. So the conceptual design will come out of that. But what the average is about 50,000 square feet plus. It's usually a a track that is around it, 200 meter or 250 meter track around it, full-size soccer pitch that is on the inside of it. Some of the activities that can be for the user groups that would happen out of that facility are badminton, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, rugby, lacrosse, field hockey, volleyball, tennis, gymnastics, importantly track and field. You could even have frisbee golf. Some actually have golf in it where they have driving ranges. Essentially any outdoor sport that requires indoor practice or whatever. And then what you'll also find out about the feasibility study as this comes out would be the amount of gym hours in Northeast BC that are actually booked. There's not enough gym hours to make it possible for all of these sports groups to get into. You know, we've talked about the Encana Event Center putting some floor spacing in there, but my thinking is we need a bigger space. One more thing, currently in northern British Columbia, and I think that northwest British Columbia actually needs one as well. There is a field house in Prince George. I've been in that facility. I've been in the links over in Alberta there, and that facility is used lots. So there's a group in Williams Lake that's in the process of completing a business case analysis. They received a grant from Northern Development for $10,000 for the business case, and that's through the Capital Investment Analysis Program. Meanwhile, in the Caribou Regional District, the District of 100 Mile has completed a conceptual design and are now preparing a referendum. So if the Peace River Regional District were to conduct a comprehensive feasibility study that looked at things such as demand analysis, capital and operational financial analysis, facility type and design, and partnership models and the opportunities that are out there for capital investment, they will qualify to get money through the NDIT program. So just to basically sum it all up, it's for the health of the Northeast. It's for the, we talk about the quality of life all the time, retaining people to stay. I'm going to be at a meeting here tomorrow actually, talking about a feasibility study for retention for Northwest British Columbia, because they're recognizing there's going to be a shortage of employment, and this is one of the things that's going to come up. So anyways, I just think that it's something that needs to be looked at for Northeast BC, and indoor field house would be, I think you're going to find that it's going to be something that needs to happen.
Thank you. Any questions, any comments? So our recommendation is that we're going to request the RD, Peace River Regional District, to undertake a feasibility study for that field house for use by the Northeast BC.
Yes.
Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Anything further?
I got a couple of things. I'll talk to you about something else later on regarding this. Councillor McFadden and I were at the Northern Lights College awards and bursaries last week, and there was almost $30,000 in awards and bursaries given out, and that was actually really, really good. And I did mention that to those students, come back please once you find your way. Let them know that there's always room for them here in Dawson Creek, and it's a great place to raise your family, etc. I also attended the open house in Poos. The Northern Lights College students had built a house out there, and I'll probably end up talking about that when we get into the Sedate Hall. Opportunities of partnerships with the college and the city of Dawson Creek on other things. That program actually, I talked to quite a few of the students and stuff like that. They're very proud of that house, and And main reason I was out there was because construction background, I got to see what they're up to. And it's actually really, really good. And I think that was it for me. Oh, one more thing. Had the NDIT, we had our Regional Advisory Committee meeting on the 17th. And that was our second intake, I believe. One of the things that came up was another expression of interest to the regional district, and that was for a economic development strategic planning session. There's also going to be a roundtable discussion coming up on economic development and who are our partners in economic development for Northeast BC. So I'll be attending that meeting here. I think that's on the 24th. So I believe it's already been in front of the Peace River Regional District. So just things that are happening and I'm working on. I got NDIT board meeting tomorrow tomorrow and the next day. So I'll have more information on what's going on in the region regarding grants and funding and stuff like that.
Thank you. Thank you for attending the college awards ceremony. Appreciate it. Any other councillor business? Item 3, minutes of our regular meeting of council of March 26th for adoption. Councillor Schumann, Councillor McFadden, any errors or omissions in the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Any business arising out of the minutes? 5, we got 5.1, we have a letter, correspondence, we have a letter from Connie Patterson, President of the Dawson Creek Exhibition Stampede, request for a fall fair sponsorship. Duncan, do we know an amount in that request?
Sure. So through your worship, I can tell you that in 2016 was the last time we provided a sponsorship. We didn't actually purchase a package, but we provided $10,200 in 2016. 2017 we didn't provide anything. We do have an annual budget that we contribute to the fall fair as far as grass cutting and maintenance and staffing of about $100,000 annually.
Thank you. Yeah, last year, as part of our budget, we removed the $10,000, excuse me, from the sponsorship to the exhibition. So what's your pleasure, folks? Councillor Javekov?
I'll make a motion that we continue with our regular donation of grass cutting and that type of thing.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Rogers, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 5.2, we have an email from Pia Schindler, Executive Director of the Kidney Foundation of Canada, BC Yukon Branch, Organ Donor Awareness. Councillor Schumann?
I would move that we do some of the things that Pia has asked of us here. I think it involves putting out a media release or social media information on April 18th around kidney or organ and tissue donation. I think it's just asking for us to sort of promote the whole thing, and I think it's kind of timely. We've seen a lot of it in the news recently, and I think it would be easy enough for us to put that out on our social media. And maybe the news will do a little story on the 18th or something in there with regards to organ and tissue donation as well. It's just that I think it's their annual campaign and trying to bring awareness to communities, and they would like our help, so I would like us to help them.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur, discussion? We're basically saying we want to use any of the options and availability we have to help promote the awareness, either through our website or our Facebook page and or through the media. Good. Any further comments, discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 5.3, we have a letter from Kathy Shoemaker, Assistant Track and Field Coach for the South Peace Campus, request for a donation of the Dawson Creek Secondary School Track and Field team. Councillor Javekov?
I'll make a motion that we approve the request.
Seconded. Councillor Rogers, discussion? Councillor Rogers?
Okay, I have been stepping out on these last few, but only because I do coach the rugby team. But the policy around this, like anytime I've seen this coming forward, I have voted against it. The policy was rescinded, but the money never was. So the money's there. So in spite of us not having a policy around it, we have been giving recently $1,000 to the basketball, the hockey, the rugby, and then I think it was last week, yeah, it was basketball again. So we have been doing it, and judging by what they're looking for here is similar to everything else that's gone out. So I can't see any reason why we shouldn't be giving it to them. That because that's the precedent that council has set. So if we're thinking of maybe we shouldn't be doing this, then maybe we should develop a policy around that money, or we should not have that. One or two.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Councillor Schumann?
So on today's agenda, I think there's 5 or 6 of these requests. I guess the word has gotten out that
Obviously.
come to for money for your school sports team or your sports teams, and I don't know how we can continue doing this. We approved these 5 or 6 today, and then next council meeting we're going to have 5 or 6 or 10 more. I know we've gone down this road and we've been giving these donations, but I don't, first of all, I don't know how much money we have left in that budget. And so there's a question for staff. And I feel like we need to do something about this. Does the school district provide any sort of granting to their school teams, or how does this work? Do they just come to us now? It's become rampant, it seems.
So 2 questions. First one, Duncan.
So through your worship, so we have a $25,000 line item for miscellaneous grants within our budget, and to date we've spent $14,296 of that, and that started just before Christmas. I believe the Beef Congress was the first request we received for 2018, and on this agenda we have, I think it's $6,500 worth of requests.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers, you can answer the school district.
Yes, I can. They do get money from the PAC. Each sports team gets about $1,200 a year, and it's divided equally amongst all of the sports teams throughout the school. If one of those sports teams goes to provincials, the school, it used to be like $1,800. This year it's $1,000. So the school district 59 will contribute $1,000 to a sports team that is going to provincials. We've had a record number of teams actually going to provincials over the last couple of years. Also, today we're looking at track and field, we're looking at cross country, and we're looking at soccer.
Okay, so I don't want to get into all the others. I just wanted to, if you could answer that question.
Yeah.
So I'm speaking against it. We don't have enough money in the budget remaining for the rest of the year in order to accommodate this, along with other initiatives that I know will be coming forward for the rest of the year. I think until I start to now see the entire budgeting process for them, where they're getting their money, what is being spent on. And as I say, there's 5 or 6 today, there'll be 10 or 15 tomorrow. We don't have enough money and it'll be gone before we even approve our budget in May. So I'm speaking against. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Rogers.
Well, I mean, it was granted previously, so I agree the precedent was set. I also agree with Cheryl's comments that, it's rampant. But as far as I'm concerned, I mean, we've got 25,000, let's spend it, and then let's figure out what we're going to do in the future so that there's some order to the whole process.
So just for clarification, we got 10 and there's 6 here, so we're left with 4 for the rest of the
Yeah.
year. Councillor Roger?
Well, we haven't determined the exact amount for all of them. But there's no policy around. I do agree with Councillor Javakoff. Let's get rid of it. These students, their parents pay taxes in town, and this is basically essentially
Some.
tax dollars.
Some.
Yeah. So,
So don't make the blanket, it's all.
yeah. Okay. I just look at it and go, the average has been, we've been giving away $1,000 each time. You know what? There's no policy around it. So if somebody else comes in, who's to say that we can't? But basically, the precedent was, if you are going to provincials, because I believe that's what they all wanted money for, was for provincials, then I would say, okay, let's develop a policy around, if we have a local team that is actually going to provincials, we should be able to help them out. But just to throw a little dig in here, if we actually had an indoor field house, we wouldn't be traveling all over the place.
Thank you. Further discussion, comments? All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeat, it doesn't pass. We're at 9 o'clock, and we need to get to now our delegations. 6.1, Barry Raynard, City of Dawson Creek, Corey Longley, and Elizabeth Squires from CUPE in attendance regarding our proclamation for the annual day of mourning. Morning. Morning, sir. Good to see you. Good. Morning.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Now, before we start this, I honestly neglected at the kickoff to our meeting that this today is, the jerseys are about obviously our support and demonstration of remembering Humboldt and showing the support to the families and friends and the entire country that have been impacted by the tragedy at Humboldt. And I neglected to do that as we kicked off our council meeting, and so I apologize to do that now, but I really did want to ensure that we have done a couple things in the community. But today, on behalf of council, we want to express our sincere thoughts, condolences, and prayers to the families and those impacted by this horrific tragedy. Whereas the Day of Mourning was initiated by the Canadian Labour Congress in 1984 and is recognized worldwide, and whereas the Day of Mourning is a day to take time to remember lost co-workers, friends, and family who've lost their lives, were disabled or injured in the workplace, and those afflicted with industrial disease. And whereas we earnestly seek to set an example and reflect on the commitment to the issue of health and safety in the workplace. Now, therefore, I do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2018 as the annual Day of Mourning in Dawson Creek, and invite residents of this community to join us for a barbecue held on Friday, April 27th to commemorate this event. So, Corey and Barry, to the CUPE and all our employees and workers, we appreciate always the initiative of putting this event on with us in partnership with the city, and thank you guys, and encourage everyone to come out on the 27th for that barbecue to commemorate those workers.
Absolutely. As president of Local 2403, we appreciate all of the support we get from the city of Dawson Creek. We make this an important day. It doesn't matter where you are, whether you're on a bus going to work or driving a truck going to work or in a city council meeting going to work. Everybody deserves to come home safe. We had over 150 people lose their lives this year, and it's very important to remember every day that these people deserve to come home. So on behalf of the local, thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Thanks, Claire. Very thank you. Mel's a good. So our next delegation is the City of Dawson Creek staff in attendance regarding the proclamation of Earth Day. Good job. Good morning. Whereas Earth Day is an annual event celebrated since 1970 that now takes place in 193 countries, all to increase awareness and appreciation for the Earth's natural environment. And whereas it is the responsibility of each of us to safeguard the environment by recognizing that all human life depends upon the Earth and upon one another for the mutual existence, well-being, and development. And whereas the steps we can take to protect and preserve our natural environment through education, partnerships, and positive actions should be encouraged in the city of Dawson Creek. And whereas this year's theme is Earth Day, by consuming less and playing more, we're taking a proactive role in shaping the future of our environment and in protecting the city of Dawson Creek's precious natural resources and our children through play. Now therefore I do hereby proclaim April 22nd, 2018 as Earth Day and urge all our citizens to be mindful of local, provincial, and national laws which protect our environment and to join in efforts to preserve the beauty and wonder of the lands, skies, and water of the earth in all its diversity by consuming less. There you go. Congratulations. Congratulations. Thank you. Thank you.
And we'd just like to take a minute to maybe challenge families and grandparents to, for April 22nd, to go out and get creative. And Shantae and Erin here are going to talk a little bit about the Everybody Active Kit that you can sign up through community services.
We have a variety of kits that you can take out for the weekend. You put a deposit down. What they promote is physical activity, so anyone in the community can come take them. They have lots of activities like bocce ball, snakes and ladders, there's Twister, all kinds of games that you can take for preschool all the way up to senior citizens. So please come and rent them. They're not really rent. Put a deposit down and have them for the weekend and promote physical activity and enjoy April 22nd with Earth Day with your family. And we also have snowshoes for this weather.
Thank you for that.
And if you had a field house.
Thanks so much. Thank you, guys. 6.3, our next delegation is Marcia Stewart from the Dawson Creek Art Gallery and Danae Renouf from the South Peace Historical Society are in attendance to do a presentation. And Audrey, good morning. Barbara, sorry.
Are we up?
Yes, you're up.
I can't hear up there, but I understand you can hear us in there. In here, rather.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Good morning, welcome.
Thank you
And
very
so we're going to
much.
combine
Good morning.
6.3 and 6.4 with the Southeast Art Society. And so welcome, ladies.
Thank you very much. I suppose, should we sit down?
Yeah,
Because we'll be
please.
here for a moment.
We need the microphone for all those that are watching.
Thank you.
in
Okay.
Internet TV land.
Thank you. So you all know me, Barbara Swale, and I'm here in my capacity as president of the Art Society. And one of my greatest pleasures is to introduce to you our new executive director, Marcia C. Stewart. And Marcia just started with us in February, and it's been so exciting. You all know Alana Hall moved, and after many, many years, it's big changes, huge changes. So Marcia has a lot on her plate, and we would like to give you a little bit of bring the gallery back to you on an annual basis, as we always do, at least that often. And Marcia has prepared, thank you very much, has prepared a brief PowerPoint just to give you the lay of the land.
Oh.
Marcia?
Well, I might need a lesson on the remote. Oh, there's just arrows back and forth. Perfect. Great. So, just to refresh, in case anyone doesn't know, the mission of the South Peace Art Society is to foster growth and awareness and appreciation of the visual arts in Dawson Creek and the area.
Interrupting.
Yeah.
Terry, I'm sorry to bother you. Do you mind pulling that blind down beside you? Is that easy to do? Awesome. Thank you very much. going to help. Thanks, Marcia.
So the South Peace Art Society formed about 70 years ago.
This year.
Yeah.
Holy.
We are one of the oldest societies in the city, and it's pretty exciting to be associated with an organization that's lasted and has contributed for as long as we have, indeed.
Yeah, so when I first started at the gallery, I didn't know that this is actually the second art gallery that Dawson Creek had. So in 1965, the South Peace Art Society and the city partnered together and had a smaller art gallery. And then it wasn't until 82, 83 when they moved the elevator and the annex, so, which...
There's very few of us here old enough to remember that, right?
So to put that into perspective, the gallery is going to be turning 35
I helped
this
build
year.
the elevator.
Did you really? Too cool. That's great. Well, it's yeah, okay.
And the gallery is absolutely recognized for its accessibility, not just in Dawson Creek, but provincially as well. So the ramp going up through the entire building is just, we always call it the Guggenheim of the North, so. We have about 11 exhibits a year. And right now, a really big deal for us is that we have funding available that we can bring in professional artists and pay them these fees called Carfax fees. So it's a big deal for artists to be able to show at the gallery and to be able to put it on their professional resume.
Yeah, this has bumped us up into a whole different category as a gallery. There's a limit when you're operating a gallery. They're all stratified as far as what kind of art you can show, but you can, a gallery such as ours is a perfect place for emerging artists to start. And then so one of the things we can do with this new funding is we can offer our local emerging artists some income from their work, which has, as you can imagine, enormous benefits. One of the other things that it allows us to do is bring in a higher caliber or a more professional, let's put it that way, because we certainly have high caliber artists here in town. In fact, the quality of the art in Dawson Creek and the area is very, very high by standards. And they are of such a standard that we want to be able to bring in new blood, new ideas, new imagery, as a way to assist them in their development as well. And the other advantage to that is that we will be eligible in, I think it's 2020, to receive operating funds through these granting organizations. So up till now, we've had to cover our costs over and above what the city helps us to maintain with fundraising and other things. The operating grants make a big difference to us and what we can possibly manage. So it's just an enormous advantage. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then as many as you know, that other than our exhibits that go up and rotate through, we have a permanent collection, and part of that is showcasing the development of the Alaska Highway. We also have the grain elevator, the main elevator, which we open up in the summertime, which tourists and locals absolutely love. It really shows how important agriculture is in our community.
And I'm going to jump in again and just tell you, Marcia has fantastic plans for both the Alaska Highway exhibit and for the grain elevator. They've been hanging there and sitting there for a very, very long time, kind of ignored because we've been so stretched. Once again, I guess we should introduce the RDF funding at this point. So Community Futures, in this late spring of last year, they got on side. We went to them, and they helped us to secure 2 incredible grants. One for $10,000, which allowed us to do a strategic plan for the gallery, allowed us to restructure our staffing model, which brought us Marcia, huge undertaking. And then we received another grant of $100,000, my friends, blew our minds, still gives me goosebumps. And with that grant, that's one of the reasons we've been able to bring the professional shows to town. And it's going to allow us to upgrade our telephone system is 35 years old. We don't have phone contact with the Bintop Gallery, which is a safety issue that's bothered us forever. Our computers are, some of them dozens of years, or tens of, whatever, ancient, and are not networked. So if one staff needs a file that's on that computer, that person has to leave their desk. So you get the picture. So this grant has been such a boon. We will be able to upgrade our branding, which in this day and age is extremely important. Our website, which is ancient and barely functional, will also be coming up to grade. So we're super, super excited by the potential. And Marcia has all these amazing ideas of what to do with it. So stay tuned, my friends.
So, and we just mentioned in our little presentation here that we do work closely with different organizations in town, one of them being the Calvin Crunk Center, where we have the Big Blue Wall exhibit. And we're changing exhibits out there on a very regular basis. And having that smaller space is nice for up-and-coming artists that might not have enough pieces to fill the gallery. Well, now we've got this beautiful space at the center.
And exposure, too.
And lots of exposure.
Yeah. It's a whole different community that uses KPAT. So it's wonderful. And they've loved it. So that's also been a nice outreach.
We have a very robust art education program at the gallery for pretty much anyone in the community. So starting from school-aged children, well, actually before the school-aged children, we have toddler time. Right now we're offering mini masters at the O'Brien School, which is amazing. Justine teaches that.
Isn't that in cooperation with the city?
And it is in cooperation with the city.
Yeah, that's a partnership program we're offering.
Yeah.
It's new and really popular, which is cool. For little kids.
For little kids, yeah, and then for the
and mums.
For the older kids, like Barb and I, there's classes in the evenings and on the weekends. So it's really, art education is full spectrum for anyone in the community.
And I'll just say that program, our art programs have grown phenomenally in the last few years with very little extra staffing and money on our part. We do charge fees for our courses and programs, but we subsidize them as much as we can. It's part of why we fundraise in order to make them accessible to as many people in the community as possible. So it's been very gratifying to see the popularity of our after-school classes, our weekend adult classes, and our evening adult classes as well.
Yeah.
Just
And then
sold out all the time.
we even make sure that we can offer education classes to other groups and organizations like local Cub Scouts and Girl Scouts, Society for Community Living, for example, where we can make sure that that the gallery and the art and the classes are accessible to them.
Yeah.
So we really do believe that our values and what we do at the gallery really exemplifies what the city's vision is. So if you don't mind, I'll use Paige as an example. Paige, as a child, came to the art gallery and did watercolor painting lessons. And then as she evolved as an adult and grew, well, we know that Paige is a successful business owner here in Dawson Creek and is very involved in the arts, and even goes so far as to teach art classes at the gallery for other people that are wanting to develop a career and just express themselves through the arts. So we really see that it really, really is truly a full spectrum, a full circle here in Dawson. So it's like Barbara mentioned, we are planning for growth right now. And
I forgot this was here.
I'll let you take over.
I think we've done this slide, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, I've already told you about this one, so we'll keep moving because I know your schedule is packed today.
So what brings us to, part of why we're here today is because of the funding that we've secured through the Real Dividend Fund. A portion of that is earmarked for us to be able to do a feasibility study on what the gallery needs to be able to support this need for ongoing education. This need for an accessible classroom space.
That's been our biggest
Yeah.
bugaboo for the last few years, is that the Bin Top Studio is a splendid space and the kids love it. The adults don't. They can't get up there. Many of our, we have Exploring Art is a group that was incubated at the gallery, ran there for 35 years, and they're now at Northern Lights College because we haven't been able to secure an acceptable, accessible studio space for them, and they're there 3 days a week. They're 30 plus members. It's a large segment of our community in general, not to mention our art community. So, and then of course anyone with a physical disability cannot get up there. So we've partnered with the city again. The city came to our rescue with the O'Brien Center a couple of years ago, and we've been more than grateful. It's used a lot, but we would like to find a permanent, accessible solution to the need for additional classroom space. We can only run one class at a time if we're limited to what's at the gallery. Even though, and some days we have classes literally like
Over top of each other.
So that's our biggest need. We have many, many other things that have to be done, but that's our largest compelling requirement at the moment. So this feasibility study will be used to determine if and where space can be made or found. And we'll be coming back to you with the results of that. And once again, we're so grateful to Community Futures and the Rural Dividend Fund for the money to even begin to approach this. And also a big thank you to the city for all that you've done over the years to support our programs. Thank you very much for that. So yeah, how did I know that was the end?
Thank you so much. Well, obviously, we appreciate you coming in. Welcome, and as always, it's very good to hear from you guys and get the update. And Marcia, welcome.
Thank you.
And so we also have a second piece to this, and we have some Councillor Parslow in council a month or so ago, and unfortunately Charlie's not here today, brought forward the idea of the Explosion of 43 exhibition that was being developed. And I understand we had some art that was
Yeah, and I think
developed
you'll be
and purchased by the city.
Yes.
And so today I get to present the
You
check.
do. May I introduce to you, if you haven't been introduced already, I'd like to introduce Renee.
Danae.
I'm
With
sorry.
a D.
Yes, it's Danae Renaud. And she is our new archivist in the Historical Society. On behalf of the Historical Society, it's a real pleasure to introduce her. I just want to also mention quickly that Marcia, so Art Gallery, Tourism, KPAC, the Archives, and the library all have new directors, all have new managers. And these young women, all of whom are all young women, as it turns out, have banded together and formed a consortium, a cultural consortium in Dawson Creek. And I'm not aware that that's happened before. So there's so many synchronicities and ways in which we can support each other, work together, develop programs. It's already been tremendously exciting, and they've only been at it for a couple of months. So here's one example of a really cool thing that has emerged out of that. So I'll let Marcia and Danae have the floor.
Okay. So yes, as you mentioned, the February 13th was the 75th of the explosion here in Dawson Creek. And as part of one of my first projects as the archivist here, I initiated a project with the art gallery which used archival photographs and the artistic community to create these commemorative works.
create these commemorative works for an important piece of Dawson Creek history. So these are 3 of 8 art pieces that were on display at the K-PAC for over a month, and Charlie Parslow suggested to council that some of these works be purchased for the permanent collection of Dawson Creek, and these were the ones that Kit Fast and I chose.
You did a great job.
Beautiful.
You did a great job, you guys.
Aren't they beautiful?
They're amazing. They're beautiful. So thank you so much. It's honestly, it's an honor for us to be able to have these now as part of the permanent collection for the city and showcase them proudly. And it's such an important message for us about always that history of a community and how important it is to demonstrate the pride that we have. So great job, you guys. So I get to present the checks. And so
Where should I put?
may we put them here
Yeah.
so that we'll have them there for council today.
Sounds good.
So Rose isn't here today?
She's not here today, no.
This is the one that Rose read. Ed?
So there's the checks and
Oh, thank you so much. There we go.
Thank you very much.
congratulations.
Thank
Great
you so
job.
much. It was a great
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 job.
opportunity.
Great job. And you'll get that to
And I'll
Rose for it.
And I just wanted to quickly add that last Thursday, actually, a couple weeks ago, I received an email from one of the teachers at Frank Ross, and last Thursday I took these works along with the other ones that haven't been collected yet to a grade 2-3 class at Frank Ross on display, and we talked about this event in history and the artwork that it inspired, and yeah, so that was a great first step.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming in this morning. We appreciate it. And really appreciate the ongoing efforts for the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for your time. Good to see you all.
Marcia. And Marcia.
Oh, awesome, right.
Capital investment analysis, it used to be a feasibility study thing, there's a grant for up to 10 grand.
Awesome.
That's through,
Thanks, Mark.
Talk to,
Northern Development Initiative Trust.
talk to Kate.
Right on. Thank you.
So our next, we're going to move on. We've got our next delegation, 6.5. Sean Henry, Miles Morris, and Isabel Jelena from the Dawson Creek Judo Association are in attendance. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
Thank you very much. Sean's not with us today, so I'm Miles Morris, and this is Isabel Jelena.
Hi.
Isabel is the head coach and sensei at the Dawson or Mile Zero Judo Club in Dawson Creek, and I'm the treasurer for the Dawson Creek Judo Association. Just to give a quick little background on both of our participation in the sport of judo. The Mile Zero Judo Club was established about a year and a half ago. Previous to that, it was the Northern Warriors Judo Club, and since 2012, we've grown the membership of that club up to about 80 participants in the community. We're looking to continue to grow that throughout judo in northern BC. The Dawson Creek Judo Association formed about a year and a half ago, and our mandate was to support judo, the sport of judo, in the Peace region, and do what we can to do that. And through fundraising and whatever other support we can offer. To date, we've done a bunch of fundraising for the last couple of years, and our main purpose of this visit is to ask for some help with a tournament that we have upcoming on May 5th. Our initial plan was to rent the O'Brien Gymnasium, and we're hoping to come here to ask for the fees to be waived for that. However, over the last month, we did an inspection of the facility, and it is rather small for what our requirements are, because judo is a sport that takes a large area to participate in. And we are anticipating to have about 100 athletes come from Prince George, Grand Prairie, Dawson Creek, and surrounding areas. And just the logistics behind having that competition in that facility was not okay. So we've gone and asked the Encana Event Center if we can use their facility, and they've said yes, we can. So we're still in need of some funding to help us with that, as well as other activities and support of athletes in Dawson Creek. We have a pretty competitive club right now, and we have some athletes that are achieving some pretty great things. A couple of our competitors are going down to nationals in Calgary this year, and they've made some great strides, but it is expensive for these athletes, and we are fundraising throughout the community, but it's not quite enough. So we were hoping to ask the council today for another $1,000 to help support the group with that.
I'd like to jump in.
Sure.
I actually quit my full-time job this year so that I could really focus on the club and help it grow and then support the athletes. So I've been traveling, bought a minivan and load the kids up in there, and we had to travel to Prince George 8 times to attend regional trainings, meet all the requirements to make it to nationals. We have a 13-year-old little girl who's wanting to go to Olympics, and her first step is going to national this year. She cut it, she made all the requirements, but that meant we went to Vancouver 3 times and Edmonton and all these PG training, and so the families here, in order to make this happen for their kids, are expending thousands of dollars already. So for us to grow a tournament here that will bring people here is so much value. And we started small last year with about 40 athletes, but we're already looking at double the amount of athletes coming. We're offering nice trophies. We're increasing the size of the venue, and the Encana being definitely the best place for us to host this. And we're looking forward to 2020, where the BC Winter Games are going to be held in Fort St. John, and we have been appointed as the club to host the judo part of the BC Winter Games. So what we are planning on doing is keep on working with the Encana and try to keep that portion, the judo portion, here in Dawson Creek, and then this way just sort of put Dawson Creek on the map as a judo destination and sort of start selling our tournament as a place to be. We called it the Battle in the Peace, which I think is pretty catchy. Nice trophies, nice venue, and bringing all those athletes from everywhere in BC here would be a huge asset. So for us to start with holding this tournament is practicing and making sure that we're ready to bring in the Winter Games and host them and be proficient at it. So we really need to start training our people, our timekeepers, our refs, and it starts with having and hosting this. So any support that the city could provide towards that, I think, would be tremendous. It's just nice to have another sport, and judo really is for everyone. I'm really focusing on little kids and physical literacy, which prepares them for any sports whatsoever when they get out of that program when they're 6 years old. It's not really fighting per se, it's just physical literacy. So I think it has a lot of value for Dawson Creek.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councillor Schumann, then Councillor Rogers, please.
So everybody might not know this about me, but I did judo for years as a young teenager, mostly in Campbell River and Smithers. But I just want to congratulate you guys on growing this club, and maybe one day, I'm getting kind of old now. But,
so am I. I'd love to have you.
One day, I might come back to it, because it really was a very comprehensive sort of exercise regime, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Keeps you very fit, and I really enjoyed it. I'm a little bit feisty, so quite enjoyed going and doing tournaments and stuff like that. So
nice.
I want to congratulate you guys on growing the club and having people come to Dawson to participate in tournaments.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Way to go, you guys. Anything about keeping the kids healthy in the community is awesome. Currently, right now, where are you guys operating out of? Because I do remember you were over at the old organic bakery for a while.
Yes.
And then you got
We were only there for a month, and it wasn't going to work out, so, just misunderstandings that went up. But we are at the mall right now, where the old La Senza was.
Okay, because I know you're struggling and everything else, and currently, so the city facilities, you don't even use any of those?
No.
No, not currently.
No, we just got the small unit at the mall, and we're trying to get a bathroom installed in there, which is also, very tedious and complicated, apparently.
Another reason for an indoor field house.
Okay,
Thank you.
Anything further? Any other comments, questions? So thank you so much for coming in this morning, because it's presentations like this that give us the opportunity to understand what's going on in the community when you're not directly touched by it, right? And so it really opens it up to the community, and kudos to you guys in terms of the initiative and passion for building a sport in our community, that's been said. So thank you for coming in. We will bring your request back in under Mayor's business and deal with it at that time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And that'll be later in the agenda this morning. 6.6, we have Leah Bowen, Taya McCarthy, Quinn Powell, Carly Taves, Georgia Pierre, Sherian Weber, Tess Weber, Dawson Creek Volleyball Club, Youth 13. Good morning, ladies.
Good morning.
Nice to have you here this morning. And the floor is yours.
So we are going to provincials this year in Calgary. We are asking for some funding to get there for our travel costs. We've fundraised a bit, but our fundraising covers different parts, but just not the travel part. Our coaches, we also pay for our coaches to go as well, so it's dispersed among all of us. So. Yeah.
Perfect. Any other council? Anybody have any questions, comments? Councilor Rogers?
I just have a comment. I know how expensive it is because like mom and dad are going with you, they're putting gas in the car, they're traveling down, there's hotel costs and everything else that goes with it. So I do understand the costs that are associated with it. And I do understand the benefits of fundraising, and it's kind of tough to do in a town like Dawson Creek because everybody's fundraising all the time and it's just different groups and stuff. So anyways, thank you for volunteering and helping the kids.
We'll enjoy it. It's definitely well worth it as a parent, and to be able to do these things for the kids, and they work really hard.
And just a note, our volleyball program in this town is just awesome. Like you're seeing it all the time on Facebook. We're going somewhere, we're winning something, and here's the future of the stars of volleyball.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. And so obviously, as Councilor Rogers has indicated, the success of the seniors, you follow them along and you see how competitive and how strong they've been performing both provincially and nationally and things like that. So it's a real credit to the sport in our community, and I don't know what it is, but it seems like it's the girls that are the ones that are dominating. It's not the boys. The boys haven't even got a team.
Right, that's right.
So anyway, great job, you guys. We appreciate you coming in this morning and your request. We will bring it back for under Mayor's business later in the agenda. And best of luck in Calgary and your competition. Thanks for coming in this morning. So we're 9:38. We'll take a 6-minute break for we can go shovel our cars off and then be back in 6 or 7 minutes.
I just tell you I'm parked in that spot.
Oh, I'll just wait for Shayla.
Go ahead.
So we're back into our regular agenda correspondence. We got through 5.2, 5.3. We have a letter from Kathy Shoemaker, assistant track and field coach for the South Peak campus, regarding a request for a donation.
Did we, sorry, through your worship, did we did that one?
We did that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it crossed off.
Cross country.
5.4, we have a letter from Eric Wolf, South Peace cross country running coach for the South Peace campus, regarding a request for a donation. Councillor Schumann?
I move this for information.
Received for information. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Councillor Javetkov and Councillor Wilbur.
Well, there's another request similar to the request that you guys approved at the last meeting. it is to do with provincials, so it's a significant event. So I think we should be sponsoring it to the tune of $1,000. I mean, that money is there, and once we spend it, we spend it. But you know, these opportunities for this kind of support doesn't come up, or in the future it may not come up as often.
Thank you. Further discussion, Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, I'm just at the point now where I just go, there's no policy around the money. Let's just get rid of the money and then let's develop a policy. Or let's just get rid of all the money right now and just give it back, put it back into general, whatever. I just look at it, you know, how can you say yes to 2 other groups that are out of that same school and then no to 2 more? I just don't understand that.
So I'll speak to it, and I absolutely have no hesitation at all about saying we have a certain amount of money, we make decisions on it. We made it without a policy. Now, just in this agenda alone, with the request, we're almost going to completely consume it, and if that's council's will, then I understand that, but I'm not in favor of doing that at this point. So I don't have any issue whatsoever in terms of saying, because we approved some in the past, that means we have to keep approving them. So anyway, that's just my view. So we have a motion to receive for information. Any further discussion, or Councillor Wilbur?
Just for you to staff, is there, we don't have a policy, but is there an opportunity for these groups to apply to us like they did before through the grant application for this funding? Like, that's the issue for me, is that we had, you know, this application and no one's applying, and we have the money. And so we've given some out, and now people are like, oh, wait a minute, we can go and ask for some money for travel. But is there an opportunity that we can maybe go back, send correspondence back to these groups and say, here's an opportunity for you to apply for this funding through a grant, without them just asking us, I guess is what I'm asking.
Duncan?
So through your worship, we did have the grant, right? We had the grants program. We repealed it in August of 2016. In that policy, we laid out eligible proposals, things that council would provide weight on. We also had some timelines. If you're talking about a grant from the city, this would, an updated version of this is what we would be recommending if we were going to go down that road. Now, I'm not certain as to why it was repealed in 2016, but since then, we've looked at them individually.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the motion to receive for information? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. 5.5, we have a letter from Robert Eichelberger, South Peace Girls Soccer Coach, South Peace Campus, request for a donation. Councillor Javetkov?
I'll make a motion that we donate $1,000.
Thank you. Seconded? Councillor Rogers? Discussion? We've had a number of discussions on them, so I don't see any reason
I think
to
we've discussed
keep
it.
Yeah. So, any further discussion? Are you ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? It's defeated. 5.6, we have a letter from Rob Hadama, President of the Dawson Creek Junior Canucks, requesting a letter of support. Councillor Schumann?
I would move that we grant their request and provide a letter of support for this hockey club.
Councillor McFadden. Discussion? Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Email from Cole Casey, South Peace Land Use Planner, Peaceful Regional District, regarding the referral of a PRD temporary use permit application. And this is, Duncan, do you want to speak to this real quickly, please?
Sure. So through your worship, this is a request for feedback from the regional district regarding extending a current permit for a 30-man camp. It's a 30-man self-contained work camp, and it is located in Loisel subdivision. And this particular permit has a 3-year term on it, although it does reference for the LP project and only till the conclusion of it. And it's it's a temporary 30-man camp. Our understanding from following up with the regional district is that this camp is not in addition, but it's opposed to the camp that we previously addressed that was going to be directly adjacent to LP. So instead of that camp, our understanding is that they are liking the location in Loisel subdivision and would like to remain there and not take advantage of that other location.
And so our previous approval of that camp over on the 5 acres by LP was on the condition we would approve it for 18 months with an approval to extend it for an additional if it was required, because we didn't like that aspect that it was 3 years with an extension of 3, I think. Or so can we absolutely put that in there as well, that LP were here just at our last meeting, gave the presentation, said construction would be done, anticipated by February of 19, and so we're happy to accommodate this. We have no issues with it if it's not a duplicate, it's not another camp, and that we give it 18 months in a term.
Okay, so through your worship, that would be the motion would be that it's as opposed to this location, not in addition to the previous location, and that it's 18 months, and we can include that in there. Those temporary use permits can be renewed once for the same term, so that would be 36 months.
We approve it if they suspend the temporary use permit that was approved for this over here,
okay,
and that it be for an 18-month period.
Okay, Alex, have I missed anything on? No, good.
Thank you. So we'll make that by way of a motion. Councillor Schumann, seconded.
Sure.
Councillor Javetkov, discussion. Councillor Javetkov.
I don't follow the rationale of us dealing with something in the regional district. Could you explain that to me?
Sure. So through your worship, when it comes to temporary use permits, as we do in the city, we contact all of the neighbors. We are a neighbor as a municipality, Alex, and so they ask for our feedback. Typically, we don't bring to council the requests that are nowhere near our jurisdiction or nowhere near our boundaries. The last two have been fairly adjacent to the city, and so they've come forward to see how council would like to respond to those.
So this is just a referral?
Yeah, it's just for us to, they ask us for any input into it, and some of the conditions that they already asked for somebody providing a camp is what's your plans for water and waste and recycling and health care and all those things. So it's just a normal process the RD would go through in their approval process, and we ask for that input. Yeah.
Well, it makes sense to me. I mean, the camp is established there, and, you know, the process of moving it, it's a, you know, a fairly significant mob and demob cost to that. So it makes sense to leave it there for the duration of the required, you know.
Yeah. Duncan?
Sorry, one other note too that's indicated in the referral is that it's for employees only of the project, and that may be something council wants to reiterate as well.
They put it in there, it's closed camp, so I'm assuming that's gonna, part of the conditions.
It says transportation, bus and bus out.
And it was originally put in because there was no accommodation at the time anywhere in Dawson Creek.
Right.
And, okay.
Thank you. So we made that by way of a motion. Did I get a mover and a seconder? Good. Any questions for comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. We're through delegations, onto reports. Report 7-1, we have report 18043 from the Energy Manager regarding the request for proposals for the curbside recycling. Councillor Schumann.
I move report number 18043 from the Energy Manager regarding the request for quotations 2018-03 curbside recycling collection be received. Further, the council award the curbside recycling contract to Waste Management of Canada Corporation for a single screen bi-weekly automated collection service, including supply of a 360-liter cart at the bid price of $6.86 per account per month for a 5-year term commencing September 1st, 2018, and further that staff be directed to prepare an education and communication plan for council review and approval.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Comments. Councillor Javetkov.
I realize that this has already been approved to incorporate recycling here, but I just wanted to make a point that this increase in fees to our residents is an equivalent to about 4% tax increase. So just as a point.
Thank you. Further comments, further discussion? It's been a huge driver, demand, piece of input we've received from the public. We certainly saw it last year through OCP and this year in terms of that feedback, and certainly any interaction I've had from people is about the curbside recycling. It's a service that folks are want to enhance, encourage, and to me, we look at the diversion of waste to our landfill. We pay a higher rate for waste because it's a mixed use now in terms of mixed waste. We don't, so that costs us all more. So I think it's appropriate now that we move forward with this service and enhance the service to our residents. And it's one that they're overwhelmingly have been, certainly that I've heard from, have voiced. Further discussion, further comments? Councillor McFadden?
Who will they use for upstream, for sorting?
So the contract that we all are part of on a solid waste management plan through legislation is through the Peace River Regional District. So basically what we're providing is a service to our residents to collect the recycling at the curb. And the Peace River Regional District, of which we're all a part of and we all pay for the post-collection costs of our waste as well as our recycling. And that cost is currently being and will be funded through the Peace River Regional District Solid Waste Management Plan. They have a contract, a 5-year contract with R3 or 3R. I always get it mixed. They're the contractor who have the agreement with the Peace River Regional District for all of the recycling they do, both communities as well as at the transfer stations. And they pay the contractor for that recycling cost. And so that recycling cost would be paid for through the RD, through that bylaw requisition. And Jeremy at Dawson Creek Recycling, for the benefit of people who are concerned about that, is a partner. He works with 3R, so he will be the depot, for my understanding, for the recycling material that's collected at the curbside.
Okay.
Duncan?
So through your worship, and just one addition to that is in some communities, curbside recycling vendors have decided to use other post collection, and so through our agreement we'll just specify that it needs to be the PRD designated post collection facility. So whoever they choose as the funder.
Okay, thank you. Further comments? Further questions? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Sorry?
Can we cheer?
No. 7.2, report 18049 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding our event center refrigeration plant upgrade. Councillor Schumann?
I move report number 18049 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding the Event Center Refrigeration Plant Room. Update be received. Further, the staff proceed with the required work to meet the requirements ordered by the BC Safety Authority and Technical Safety BC. Further, that if an insufficient amount of funding is received through grants or the reallocation of funds from other under budget projects, with the necessary amount up to $80,000 be available through the capital reserve.
Who seconded? Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. Duncan, can you give us an update on this?
Sure. So through your worship, we've been operating that plant 10 plus years, and we've had regular inspections. To date, we've had minor concerns. Through the most recent inspection from Technical Safety and WorkSafe BC, they've determined that this exhaust stack needs to be extended. Unfortunately, we're unable to do that, and we've had to come up with an alternative method, which is through water, as ammonia gravitates to water, through a deluge system. And in order to reopen and operate that plant, they'd like to see this work done. We've already seen one budget come in under budget at the RCMP, Levi, correct?
Right.
And so we've already found some funding. It doesn't fund the entire amount, but the intent is not to utilize the capital reserve, but to find funding through other efficiencies and through other projects. So that is the intent.
Thank you. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, this was frustrating for me when I first seen it. Just curious, how much higher do they actually want this stack to be?
Through your worship, I'd have to ask Levi.
I think it's close to 3 meters higher, but with the airport, we can extend that.
Okay. So, now, my experience has been, when you're dealing with WorkSafe, et cetera, they're going to apply everything that is typical for Vancouver. So if you had a rink in Vancouver, and they said, oh, this is how high that stack has to be because of where it's situated. Like there's buildings that are a lot closer and stuff. This is a facility that's way out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much. And we're in Dawson Creek, and when does the wind not blow is the best question. Is there any way that we can kind of get, like, re-talk to them and find out if if we're gonna actually have to follow the same rules as everybody else? Because our climate is different, our weather is different. There's so many different variables that go on. Like, where's the next closest resident to that facility? I know that the big talking about the people in it, but is there not an opportunity to have a further discussion with them and have them explain their rationale a little bit closer?
Duncan?
So through your worship, we've worked very, very closely with WorkSafe and Technical Safety BC, and just as a result of some of the other happenings within the province, they're looking at things a little differently. Their concern is that if we don't have this height on our stack and we were to release ammonia, that it would not be able to disperse within the air, and that it would be trapped within the building, and it would be held between where the stack is currently located and the building, and it would create an area where we may possibly be egressing some of our patrons from the facility through, and they would like that higher so that will move quicker. So we've worked very closely with them. This is an area that they're very conscious of right now, and we've also our proposal is rather unique, and they haven't seen that necessarily. It's within their regulations, and so they're having to take a closer look at even our proposal right now. Eli, have I missed anything?
Not much, but just to touch on the reasoning behind the stack is exactly right about egress. It's located very closely to a public exit, and Duncan had it right where they're concerned, where if there was an ammonia release, it would be contained right in that area, and that's the main reason for extending the staff.
Thank you. Further comments, further questions? Councillor Schumann, sorry.
Yeah, I know this is frustrating, I get it, and it's costly, but honestly, safety is paramount, and safety of our staff, safety of our citizens, safety of anybody downwind, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We need to do what we can to make sure that our facilities are safe as they can be. And it's going to cost money, I get it, it's frustrating, but this is something we have to do.
Duncan?
Sorry, through your worship, and I would just like to add that we haven't kind of just jumped into this project. We had TFM consulting in looking at the plant prior to this to just determine that life cycle of that plant and to determine whether we would be replacing it in the near future. What they found is it's a relatively new plant. It's had minimal use. Or else we wouldn't be recommending this. We might be looking at Freon or other possibilities. But at this point, completing the stack and the life cycle of the facility, and it makes sense to do the upgrade.
And we do have plans to continue to the event and sport tourism and build that model of activity at the event center and leverage it. And if that means arena ice and rink more utilization, then we got to make sure that we keep it current to those standards, because the last thing we want to do is plan something and then have it shut down because they say it's not safe for some reason. So, yeah, I get it. I'm with you. It's frustrating, and we just have a stamp of approval a year ago, but a tragedy in our province, and I know certainly speaking to some of the other municipalities and communities are all undergoing this focus on ammonia systems within public facilities. So. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. 7.3, we have report 18050 from the Parks and Facilities Manager regarding our Sedaton Hall update. And before we get into this, Duncan, can we get a bit of a verbal update overview of the Sudeten Hall, either from yourself or Barry and Levi.
Yep.
Or,
So through your worship, I'll start and then Levi will jump in and correct me. How does that sound? So Sudeten Hall, about a year ago, we had a concern brought forward about some movement within the facility. We went in, we took Force Engineering in with staff and with Mr. Campbell, and we walked through, and there was some movement within the facility, and there were some recommendations from the engineer, putting in or installing a sump pit and putting in some further bracing. This year, we revisited the facility, and there's been significant movement within the facility to the point where the facility has been recommended closed until we address it. There's some bowing in the floor, which your trip hazards, but structurally there's been some lateral movement that needs to be addressed through the recommendation. We've asked council or recommended to council that we put some funding out of the operational budget to address that, which will most likely include some further sump pits, some work with the supporting telescopic beams and maybe further supports, and also some investigation to determine what the best outcome is. There's been some discussion about lifting the building and pouring a new foundation. There's also been discussion about lifting the building and repairing the existing until we do some excavation on the exterior wall and find out what that fill material is and what that weeping tile and that drainage system looks like. I would hate to put a recommendation in front of council. And also, we've indicated the 2019 budget discussions as an opportunity to talk about this. Gives us some time to do the investigation and do some of that work, but also put it in context with the other projects that the city will have lined up for 2019.
Thank you.
Sorry, Levi, have I missed anything?
Through your worship, the only thing to add to that would be that working with Janet, we've reached out to our insurance provider as well, and we'll be on site with them this week, hopefully, to determine if there's any opportunity for insurance. So we'll update you on that when we have more information.
Thank you. Councillor Schumann?
So we don't have any information on the foundation. Like, did we put that foundation down, or was it the society who, like, we don't have any information about that foundation regarding how it was put down, or reaping tile, et cetera, et cetera. That's something we have to investigate. We don't know what's there.
So through your worship, at this point, we're not certain. We believe it was a partnership, just going back through our files. We believe the project was a bit of a partnership between the groups, and it was moved to site. I can say it was 1991, I believe, and I'm looking at Dale because he has the numbers, and I believe in 96 there was some issues with the foundation, and it actually fell, and it was re-poured on the inside of that location, and that's where we would like to just take a look at the entire structure before we lead council into a decision to utilize the existing, just to understand exactly what happened there.
Councillor Wilbur?
We haven't done the recommendation yet, but I have a question.
Yeah.
So what's recommended here then, putting in these, where I've lost the word for them, but anyways, these poles, is really just a temporary fix to allow for that information to be gathered, because at this point, it's probably not safe at all to be digging around there. Because I did notice in the report that some that were already there were bowing. So is that my understanding, that if we move forward on this is just to fix it to a situation where we can then do that work that needs to be done to find out what actually needs to be done?
So through your worship, the intent is to protect the structure from further damage. It's not to make it safe for use. It's not to remedy all of the concerns. Right now, it's just to ensure that it doesn't get to a point where council doesn't have a decision. So it's really just to mitigate any further damage to the building while we investigate.
I just want that to be out there, that this is a step to move forward. Right. It's not a fix.
Yeah. Councillor Rock?
So to be clear, we've condemned the building, and we want to now...
I don't think we've condemned it. We've just closed it.
Closed it.
Closed it. Okay. So nobody's allowed in there. So we're gonna put some money in it so that it doesn't get any worse than what it already is.
Right.
Okay. I need a history lesson because so Sedaten Hall was an older building that got moved here, and it was the city that moved it here, or was it the Mile Zero Park Society, or who actually did all of that, and like why is it the city's building?
So we have Dale Campbell is in the gallery, and I need a unanimous consent of council to allow him to speak. Okay. Yep, Dale, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship and councilors. The foundation was built in approximately 1990. The city bought or gained ownership of Sedaten Hall, and it was moved in 4 pieces and set up onto a foundation that was supervised by Sam Barber. As what capacity, I'm not sure. John Marion was a contractor. Sam was involved in the Historical Society and also the staff of the city. So I don't know what capacity he was there. There's 3 foundations put in at the same time with the relocation from where the Heritage Village was over by the Encana Center to where it's at now, the Harper Store, the entry office, and that one. In consultation with Sam, there was no weeping tile put in at that time, which was the normal course of construction. Backfilled with clay, with spans. What's happening now is the water has raised the basement floor up, and we have teleposts in there. We cannot lower the teleposts because of all the rooms in the basement. The 2x4s in the walls are going up, and so we have to take those out so we can lower the teleposts, so the building is sitting on the foundation, so the foundations don't come in with all the weight and everything from outside pressures. Basically, that's where we're at.
Thank you. So now, go ahead.
Yes, I do understand
I just would like to now move to a motion, because we've had a fair amount of discussion and we should have a motion. I just wanted to get the background for administration before we did this, so I would like to now put it on a motion, and then we can have the discussion. Councillor Javeka?
I'll move that report number 18-050 from the Parks and Facilities Manager for East Sedaten Hall update be received. Further, that council direct staff to spend up to $20,000 out of the 2018 operating budget to prevent further deterioration of Sedaten Hall and investigate possible solutions. Further, that Sedaten Hall remain closed to the public until all safety issues are resolved, and further, that staff provide options to council for the 2019 budget discussions.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Rogers. Discussion. Go ahead, Councillor Rogers. You got a...
Yeah, I understand, like with clay getting moist and the hydraulic pressures that are attributed to that. Now, I'm going to say something that's probably going to offend a bunch of people, but in all due respect, Dale. So, the Rotary Lake has since been, we're on a closure notice regarding that. We've got Sedaten Hall. Financially, what is actually the interest that City of Dawson Creek has with that whole facility down there? And would we not be better off just giving all of that to the Mile Zero Park Society, and then the city getting out of that business down there of hall rentals and stuff like that? That's just one point. Could I have a response from staff?
So if we dispose of city assets, you can't just give it to someone. You'd have to put it out to public tender, my understanding, and to sell it. We just couldn't give it away because it is a public asset. We own, the city residents of Dawson Creek own that asset. Duncan?
So through your worship, Brenda can talk about the disposal of assets, maybe just quickly.
Yeah, through your worship, that is land and improvements. So we do need to provide a notice. It's a 2-week notice in the newspaper to provide opportunity for the public to respond to what council's direction is. Council can take any feedback and change their decision, or they can keep their decision the same.
Duncan?
And through your worship, there may, just building off Councillor Rogers' comments, if we were to give it to them, through legal, we have received some advice that was more on on maintenance, but if there is a cost, in this case maybe a repair cost or a construction cost, sometimes that can go against the cost of the land, but we would have to get some more feedback if that's the road council decided to go down.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Rogers?
So one other thing, there is an opportunity with me attending the open house of the Northern Lights College construction guys. I had talked to them about City Hall and some of the issues that were going on with that. And the feedback I was getting was, contact us and let's see if we can actually work out a partnership or do, help you do something down there. And I do know that I believe the Northern Lights College has also helped in the past down there. Did they not build some of the facilities down there as well already? So there might be that opportunity there, and I think that it's worthwhile reaching out to Northern Lights College to possibly have them help assist on that project.
That'll be part of the 2019 budget discussions in terms of what council direction they give if they pass this motion. Councillor Wilbur.
Well, just to lead off of what Councilor Rogers just said too, that given he also is a representative at NDIT and it is a really good tourist attraction to our community, perhaps he could meet with the Park Society and get them some information on maybe some funding that would be available for them to apply for to help alleviate some of the costs to preserve that building. Just throwing it out there.
We've already talked about that.
I'm just throwing it out there publicly, so you'll hold them to it.
Oh no, Dale knows that there's $50,000 available.
So motion is that we put $20,000 in to preserve and ensure that we try to keep from further deterioration and protect that building. So, any further comments? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 7.4, we have report 18052 from the Chief Administrative Officer regarding our municipal policing expenditure cap. Councillor Duvekov.
Move that report number 18-052 from the Chief Administrative Officer municipal policing expenditure cap be received. Further, that council direct staff to send a final confirmation letter to the RCMP identifying the municipal policing expenditure cap for the 2018-19 term will be $3,171,091. Further, that the final confirmation letter state the municipal policing full-time employee contract strength remain at 25 for the 2018-19 term.
Thank you. Seconded, Councillor Schumann. Discussion. Duncan? Any?
Through your worship, this has previously been done through the budget process. Opportunity with the new CAO to look at these processes and ensure the council has those decision points in front of you, as well as the strategic plan through the RCMP, which is something council will see in the near future as well, which I don't believe you've been involved with.
Good. Thank you. Further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. 7.5, we have report 18053 from the project manager, request for quotations of our electrical and instrumentation services contract for water and environment. Councillor Rogers.
Move that report number 18-053 from the project manager, water resources manager regarding the request for quotation 2018-04, electrical and instrumentation services, water and environmental be received. Further, that council award RFQ 2018-04 to Tarpon Energy Services Limited based on the rate schedule provided in the bid for a 3-year term beginning on June the 1st, 2018 with an option to renew for an additional year.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur. Discussion. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Item 8, bylaws. 8.1 is our manufactured home park bylaw 4368 2018 for consideration of third reading. Now, we did have some input. We'll answer those questions if there is need after council reviews them at our next meeting. Before we give it forth, we can rescind third to incorporate any other changes, but at this point this is third reading that moves us towards final, with the understanding we have had some input and we'll feed that back to the residents as well as to council. So this is third reading just today. Councillor Schumann, second Councillor Rogers. Discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. 8.2 is zoning amendment of bylaw 4370 2018 for third reading and adoption, and this is the cannabis bylaw. Councillor Schumann, seconded. Councillor McFadden, Duncan.
So through your worship, just a bit of an update on this process. So this particular bylaw is defining cannabis. We are moving forward with the understanding that in July this is going to become legal. So our process right now, if this is an appropriate time to talk a little bit, April 30th we intend to bring a report to council. We could do an incredible amount of work updating bylaws. We haven't received a lot of feedback from the public or had a lot of opportunity for discussion at council. So we'd like to bring forward a report on the 30th that really outlines the areas of jurisdiction, federal, provincial, and local government, and the questions at hand, and bring forward some recommendations for council, knowing that this would still need to be updated through a bylaw process. We'd like to bring that forward on the April 30th meeting, get some direction from council, and then we would be recommending at that time some public consultation based on what we think we're doing. And after we receive that public feedback, then bringing forward the reports for council to update the bylaws.
Yeah, I think for all of us, anticipating the federal legislation is going to change, and July, August, September, at whatever time frame, and the province and the feds are working hard on doing that, and for us to respond and react to that in terms of building our policies and bylaws to reflect the anticipation of that, where today it's illegal and in 4 or 5 months it'll be legal. So we need to anticipate that, but we can't get ahead of it, but also make some changes to those bylaws and ensure that we are ready for that federal and provincial legislation and regulation. Duncan?
Just one other note, Alex contacted Kevin last week to let him know that some municipalities are actually planning on operating the dispensaries in their communities, so I'd just like to throw that out there as well.
Councillor Javetkov?
I never thought about this at the time that we're talking about this bylaw and the development of it. It's limiting any production to agricultural land, which in this community would mean that it would be a new building or a new facility of some sort. But there are existing buildings in town that would probably be suitable. So if there was an entrepreneur that was interested, or had connections with some grower operation, it may be something that we should be considering. Considering that the economic development aspect of it, like these grow ops, and I don't know how many people they involve, but I know individuals have said that it's a full-time job growing pot. But there's also the security and all the aspects that go along with it. So it could be a significant economic development benefit to the city. And if there's a building that's suitable that's not on agricultural land, it's something to consider. It might be premature at this point because there aren't any proponents, but I guess that's something that that we should be considering.
Yeah, there's the consumption, the possession, medical versus recreational, how many plants a resident or an individual is allowed to have. And now there's another pillar in there as well that the federal government, I think, and we'll see that through the federal government and provincial government, is the whole quality control standards around who's allowed to grow and to provide to dispensaries, and that gets into your economic opportunity. And so I believe there will be some standards attached to that for who and what they need to do to grow it commercially for selling it to dispensaries, and that's all under consideration through the Fed. So it'll all absolutely be something that'll be part of that consideration for us.
Yeah, one of the considerations, if you're starting from scratch and developing a new facility, you've got issues like water, which we know are a showstopper in some subdivision areas of our city. Electrical, it's a big cost. If you've got a facility that's already got these this infrastructure in place, it's, you know, it's probably preferable to look at something like that.
Our staff are going to be busy through August, September, October, November. I'm looking at Alex because of the implications to our bylaws and all of that component. Duncan?
So through your worship, a good opportunity to reiterate that the intent of this is not to make a final decision on our city's position for cannabis in the community, or where or how, or this is really, once this is approved, if it's approved, if the legislation were to change and make it legal tomorrow, it would buy us some time in order to plan and to indicate how we want this growth to happen. So this is just step one of many steps.
Councillor Trebek?
So just clarification, so is the requirement to have this on agricultural land reserve land a provincial requirement at this point? Or is it local?
So through your worship, and I'll look at Alex, but we've essentially captured everything that's legal right now through this bylaw, and the growth on ALR is what's currently permitted for medical marijuana. So we're just capturing what's actually allowed right now. On the 30th, we're going to try to capture what we think is going to be allowed July 1st, and that's still a bit of a moving target. And so discussion about where in town we would allow it, you know, in what form and what other, you know, practices. We're going to get into those discussions. We're just trying to put this in place right now. So if it were to become legal tomorrow, we would only be allowing what is legislatively permitted today, and we're not handcuffing us in the future. So for instance, if we didn't have this in place and it became legal and we weren't able to update our bylaws in time, something could happen that maybe we didn't necessarily care for, and this is going to ensure it doesn't.
Thank you, Duncan. Sure. Thank you. We voted on that? No?
I don't think so.
No, we didn't.
Are we ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. 8.3, we have report 18044 from the Development Services Manager regarding our official community plan bylaw 4373 for consideration of first and second reading. Councillor Javetkov?
Move first and second reading.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Wilbur? Discussion? Ton of work, ton of effort, ton of activity and input from a whole host of sources, from council, from staff, from the community, from residents, from it really is the visioning document for us for our next 5 to 7 years, hopefully, and it really is such an important bit of work. So we really want to extend our appreciation to staff and to Alex, who stepped in and said, yeah, I'll help. So great job. Honestly, and really appreciate obviously the input from our community and folks who really gave that input into what they see Dawson Creek being in the future, and that's what we should be building our community on. Councillor Wilbur?
I just have one question. I know we had talked about before, so in this now, that Hanson application's now in there and everybody down there's got their group together, or more or less? Okay, thank you.
So through yours, the map was adjusted very late in the process, based on the provincial decision.
Yeah. So it goes back in for their input, and then we hold that until we get that feedback back for third and final. Good. Thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Report 18046 from our Development Services Manager regarding zoning amendment bylaw 4376. 2018 for development at 11612 8th Street. Councillor Javetkov?
Move that report number 18-046 from the Development Services Manager, rezoning amendment 18-02 bylaw number 4376, 2018, and liquor primary license application, Post and Road Tavern, Unit 5, 11612 8th Street, be received. Further, that zoning amendment 18-02 bylaw number 4376 2018 be given first and second readings. Further, that the staff be directed to provide notification to surrounding property owners regarding both applications and to publish the required notice for a formal public hearing.
Moved, Councillor McFadden seconded. Discussion? Nice development on the south side of town in that mini mall down by M&M Meats and BC Assessment in that building. Met with the owner last week and he's very excited about getting it moving ahead, and it's going to be a unique style establishment, and so we wish him the best, and we'll move forward with this shortly in the next meeting. Councillor Javekov?
All of the trucks that line up there that are providing economic development to the city can probably...
Be just one more spot for them. Further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Thank you. Report 18051 from the Recreation Manager regarding our fees and charges bylaw.
Your Worship, as a new administrator for South Peace Junior Soccer, I'm going to step out on this.
Okay. Councillor Rogers?
I'll move that report number 18-051 from the Recreation Manager regarding fees and charges amendment bylaw number 4367, 2018 be received. Further, that bylaw 4375, 2018 be given first 3 readings.
Thank you. Seconded. Councillor Schumann. Discussion? Councillor Schumann?
How many of these do we have? Like soccer fields, ball fields, do we have a lot of them? Like I'm trying to picture, I'm thinking there's one, like is it the Kid Park Diamonds?
Yes. So through your worship, previously our fees and charges bylaw only captured Harry Morrow, Paul Loisel, and some of the Diamonds and Kin. You have a lot of, we're seeing an influx of requests for just park space and exclusive use of that park space. We also have some parks up at Frank Ross. We also have some over at Canalta School. We also have some Diamonds on 15th Street. You have Kitchen. So none of those were captured before in the bylaw, and it's just providing consistency, a consistent fee, and just that consistent exclusive use. We do not plan to implement a fee for families or groups that want that free space or free public use. It's really just exclusivity. If you want to program in that space, there's a fee just like there is in any other field.
Go ahead.
So I notice, like this, for example, the South Peace PE teacher sometimes takes the kids down the road on 15th there and they play ball. Is that something we would then start charging the school district for, or is that just...
So through your worship, we have a joint use agreement with the school district that says essentially if there's no out-of-pocket cost for that specific use, that we don't charge them for that. Council approved that a number of years ago. And that applies also where the school uses gymnasiums. There's ultimately no cost. The janitorial is just scheduled a little later, so it's a trade-off agreement we have with the school district to say that maybe some of our infrastructure is underutilized during the day when they need it, and maybe some of theirs is underutilized in the evening when we need it.
Thank you. Any further comments, questions? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Councillor Wilbur can come back. Item 9 is Mayor's Business. 9.1. First one is the BC Council of Forest Industries Convention was 2 weeks ago in Prince George. Councillor Wilbur and I attended, and so it was really good conference in terms of really identifying and dealing with the forest industry across Canada and North America and the world. It was so enlightening to me to see how the forest sector is diversifying itself in terms of markets from traditionally just North America, Canadian, U.S. as market sources to China, the U.S., Asia, Europe, and the construction techniques, and talking about how now changing that mindset that anything more than a one-story building has to be made from concrete or steel, and this concept that now 5-story, 7-story high-rise buildings are being built out of construction softwood lumber, and it's amazing to see what's going on in the world in terms of the development of wooden structure buildings. And The other one to me that was really, you're seeing more and more development in, particularly in Japan and some of the Asian countries, is prefabrication of construction techniques. So they're prefabricating construction panels, and if I can use the term, that they prefabricate a home in a factory or in a manufacturing facility, and then transport it out to the site for to put together, rather than building it on site. And they're talking about how the difficulty in attracting tradespeople and the efficiencies with which they can do that on site in a manufacturing model versus one at a time is really starting to take hold, and it's really transitioning some of that construction techniques across the world. So there's so many things that you see and you get exposed to in these conferences, and certainly that was very, very positive to me in that regard. I think it's important for us to be there in terms of demonstrating that support to not the softwood industry as particular that our community is impacted by, but Louisiana Pacific as a major facility, a major employer in our community, and it's really good to see the impacts that they feel and have in that industry. And and I'll talk about it a little bit later in my update, but also there we just get another exposure to the Mount Caribou and all the impacts of that, and habitat, and how that impacts the socioeconomic impacts of industry. So anyway, all in all, it was a really good 2.5 days or 2 days that we were there, and found it very worthwhile. We went down on Wednesday morning, the first day, and a meeting with Minister Trevena, the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure, had reached out to us. We've had a couple of engagements with her. We met with her at EBCM, had another couple of discussions over the phone about the Passenger Transportation Safety Board's application from Greyhound to remove service from a number of communities in northern BC and the Okanagan, as well as the island. And so we had another conversation and a meeting with the minister on Wednesday morning before Kofi. It was represented by almost everybody in northeastern, northwestern, and the interior of British Columbia in regards to the removal of service by Greyhound. Lots of different options that they're talking about, and I think they look at Highway 16 a couple of years ago as a result of the study done by Wally Opal on the Highway of Tears, and so they've come up with a service on the Highway 16 from Prince George, I think, out west to, I think it goes to Terrace, but I'm not exactly sure. And it's being provided now by transit, with the municipalities along the route participating in some of the funding. And I know the mayor of Prince George had talked about they put in $50,000 towards that service. I think it's about a 60-40 or 66-33 split in funding for that transit service now that's running across Highway 16. And so that was, I think, one discussion that the minister had broached in terms of, is there an option for transit to provide service? But honestly, from my perspective, I look at it from hub to hub now, and let's not try to solve the problem for everybody. Let's look at it from the perspective of Prince George to Dawson Creek, and then Dawson Creek to perhaps Fort Nelson, and look to see if we can find a way for private sector to express some interest in it, and then maybe work with the province to help find a way to help subsidize it or provide some support to it while they build that model. Because I think right now nobody has any indication or understanding of how much traffic volume, how much volume is being utilized by people, how many passengers are actually utilizing the service, and what's the need, and is there a freight component. And so there's a whole bunch of unanswered in there, and so we're going to continue to work with the minister on it and have that discussion. But right now there is no answer, and the service by Greyhound will be ending, I think, the end of May of this year. I think June 1st it's finished. And I met with one of the passenger shuttle businesses here who provide that passenger shuttle service to the industrial users here for rigs and all that kind of stuff, and to see if they're licensed under the Passenger Transportation Safety Board, and just to see if there's a consideration. But you know, you got locations of pickup, reservations, ticketing. It's a whole bunch of infrastructure you need. It's not just simply showing up someplace and offering a ride to somebody. So anyway, there's a bunch of work, and the minister is keen about, and the province are keen about trying to find a solution and work with us to do that, and we'll continue to engage with them, but I don't know that there's an answer to it right now. Questions, Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, does the provincial government currently help subsidize Greyhound in any way at all?
No.
Not at all?
No. And part of Greyhound's license under the Passenger Transportation Board, and we met with them last fall, and they talked about this and said, look, part of the dilemma for us has been, we're told on some of these routes, you have to provide a minimum of 4 trips a month. Well, if they said, if the passenger transportation license would have said a maximum of 2 a week, we could have changed our business model, but when we're put under that regulatory regime of saying you have to do it a minimum of so many times a week, they just said it become unviable financially for us. We're bleeding money and we just can't continue to sustain it. So anyway, we're looking at it and developing it, and we're going to continue to find a way to find a solution to it. Councillor Javecka?
Just wondering if there's anything new on 8th Street and Snake Pit bridges.
So I did talk to the Minister of Staff when they were there, off to the side. It wasn't part of that. And so the indication is that engineering is underway. They're looking to hopefully put it out perhaps to tender this summer for a 2019 construction. And that was 8th Street. I didn't talk about Snake Pit, and I think it'll be if it's 8th Street, it'll be 8th Street first, then Snake Pit, because there's no way they're going to try and do both of them together, I wouldn't assume. But it's still moving full ahead, and with an anticipation of a 2019 construction timeframe. So, yeah. The other one, we had a meeting about 2 weeks ago, and fortunately John with the Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations and all that other stuff, and it was about the Southern Mountain Caribou. And so the Southern Mountain Caribou are a herd that run from Williston, north of Williston Lake up in that arm, down through Chetwynd, Tumbler, and to the Quintet. There's about 4 different herds. Their population are declining significantly and have been in a number of areas. They're very worried about it in terms of the declining populations of the caribou, and they've been dealing with it in Alberta and Eastern Canada. And so basically the meeting we had, and there was probably 30 or 40 of us there from ministry and industry and municipalities, and basically what they're saying is the federal government, when a species is at risk, and the federal government, when that occurs, the federal government has the final say in terms of declaring a species at risk. And if they do, they completely lock down the habitat of that area for that species. And so the caribou in the Southern Mountain have 2 areas in which they situate themselves. The winter range is for the summer, or sorry, the winter range, they come down off the mountains into the lower elevations, and then obviously in the summer months they go back up, and they primarily the habitat that they feed on is the lichen. And the 3 or 4 things that we got out of this presentation was habitat protection, helping predatory control, and predatory control being wolves, bear, man, because if man intrudes in their territory, then that impacts their ability for sustainability of the herds. And then also the socioeconomic components of forestry and mining and all those other activities that could impact their territory. And so if the federal minister declares it species at risk and they lock down that area, basically they say nothing happens within that area. And so for us as a community, as an example, the Quintet herd, the Quintet area, the Bear Hole Lake is within that area. And so the headwaters of our watershed are contained in that area. And so the impacts to us as a community could be impacted if that occurs. So the Provincial Ministry of Forest Lands and Natural Resource Operations are working away at trying to find a made in BC solution to take into consideration not just the science and data of the declining herds and what's happening to them, but also the socioeconomic impacts of that, so that we make sure that we work together to find a solution to protect the herds. And so that's the work that's ongoing, and there's a committee now being formed to work together with them, but we're really concerned about it in terms of the impacts to that, because there you talk about perhaps the harvesting of softwood lumber and our LP lumber could be impacted by reducing the area if the federal minister declares that protected area for species at risk. So there's a ton of work. It was very informational in terms of educational to me, in terms of having engaged in it. We're going to have a meeting with the NCLGA right away with community groups, and I've reached out to Kofi and other folks. So we make sure that we get some feedback into that mechanism for the provincial government as they work away trying to ensure that we take all those things into consideration as it relates to that Species at Risk Act that the federal minister could impose. There's a lot of it. It's technical and it's so anyway, that's the 2 or 3 things there. I want to bring back, Peace River Regional District, we've kind of concluded our budgeting process, and we've always had the South Peace Economic Development function. I brought it back a couple of times to council, and just for your information more than anything, it's a requisition that goes through the PRRD for those things. And I wanted to make sure you guys were aware of. I had suggested we pull out of the geopark at the last one, but I was worried about that there would only be 2 or 3 of us left in it, but it seemed like it was fairly consistent. There was a few that pulled out, but at the end of it, it's still our requisition for our region is still pretty much the same as it has been in the past. And I really like the fact that we've still got now our South Peace Business Directory, our Health Society, Business to Business Conference, the South Peace Love, and a number of initiatives that will help us continue to build that regional economic function. So it was more for your guys' information than ratification, because it occurs at the Peace River Regional District Board, at which I'm the director. Do you want a motion to approve that? Brenda's shaking her head yes. So if I could have a motion, Councillor Wilbur, Councillor McFadden, all in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
We want to keep Brenda happy.
We had a contact last week from the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers, and there was a national initiative put forward in terms of putting forward a letter of support and getting as many signatories from chambers, from industry representations, as well as municipalities, in terms of sending a letter of support to the Prime Minister, supporting the initiative of we have to be cognizant of how important resource development and the development of our industries are to our country and our provinces and our regions and our so I took the initiative to sign the letter, and I'm seeking your support today to have that done. Councillor Schumann and Councillor Wilbur. Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, no, I'm,
okay.
Go ahead, finish.
I don't know.
Well.
Slippery slope. I do have a comment. So we sent this to Prime Minister Trudeau and the Cabinet. Why aren't we sending one to the province of British Columbia?
So this was a national initiative because it's the federal government that have the authority. And there was a conference event on Thursday morning in Vancouver, and it was televised pretty widely in a number of social media, and it was very well done. And so CAP were there, IBCA, Kofi, BC Business Council, the Mayor of Abbotsford. So there was a number of folks who were there demonstrating and talking about how important this is to the federal government as well as to our province.
Well, I just think that it's really important for our region, because they're talking about, like, okay, the bitumen doesn't flow through that pipe unless it's mixed with our condensate. And then that condensate, because that's the misconception, I believe, is that they're talking about the bitumen flowing through it, but they don't realize all of the additional things that are in it. Like once that oil, I believe, gets to where it's going, they'll separate the condensate back out again and make those value-added products out of it. So I think they're just talking like,
yeah.
To me, when I hear about it, they're going, there's all those value-added products that are actually in that pipe as well.
The message to, I think, the federal government and provincial government was, and it come out at Kofi, and Jock Finlayson, the economist for BC Business Council of British Columbia, gave a presentation, and he talked 51% of Canada's gross domestic product nationally, we're dependent on the resource sector, forestry, mining, energy, and another 25% of that is related to the resource development. So over 75% of our national gross domestic product is representative of the resource sector, of the economies of our country are built upon it. 3 or 4% of it was the tech sector. And so it was crazy to me when you see that about how much emphasis or lack of emphasis is placed on how important the resource sectors are to us in our economy. And so you can say what you like about it. It is critically important to us as a country, as a community, as a province, and as a community. So anyway, it was very well done presentation that the industry folks did on it, and the national support that this has received has been very strong.
In Northeast BC, we got them all.
Yeah, exactly. Dawson Creek does. Shaven?
Well, I just wanted to add to that, the interesting part about the letter and the press conference that they had was that it was across the board. It wasn't one particular resource, it was all of them. And they had other people there that was speaking, I can't remember the gentleman's name, who talked about renewables and stuff and was saying, all of these people are affected if this does not go through. This is what it means. And that was included in that conversation of what they put in and what they take out at the other end. So it's interesting, and I think a good message to see that all of the different resources, agriculture, forestry, all of them were there and together saying this affects all of us.
Did we vote? All those in favor?
We were just having
Opposed?
discussion.
Carried. Thank you. The last one, we had a presentation from the Judo Club requesting some space to hold their provincial competition, as well as $270 for some awards. Duncan, the Encanna Event Center, is it a facility that can be used for, we have a couple of events a year we can give. Do we have that available?
Sure. So through your worship, we have the ability to waive the rental fees for 2 events a year, and I believe we've committed to the graduation
All right.
as one of those events, and in the past we've used the second for various other projects. My understanding is the Judo Club's been in touch with the event center. They're looking at about a $500 fee. I know they have some of these community good incentives and aspects built into their agreement, so I don't know if that is already reduced and just a out-of-pocket expense, and I would want to follow up on that before we utilized maybe our free use, if that's where council's going.
All right. What's your pleasure? So Councilor Rogers and Councilor Jim.
I would move that we give them the $1,000 that they asked for, and if we get a seconder, I'll talk about that.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Seconded? Councilor Javekov? And you want to speak to?
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, give them a $1,000 grant, and I mean, if they can chisel Ryan down a bit, that's to their benefit, but, you know, it's a in-town event, so it's different from spending money on people traveling, but, so I think it's got lots of merit.
Councilor Rogers?
Like I say, it's in town, we're utilizing our facility. It goes back to our discussions around sport tourism and stuff like that. So if we don't support it, you know, like I believe we all supported sports tourism model that we're working towards. And this is part of it, so you'll probably see more of this coming. But I really like the fact that they're bringing people into Dawson Creek. That's awesome. And it's actually raising the profile of judo, which they're involved in with the summer games as well. So I think that's awesome. Support them.
Councilor Wilbur?
I'd be happy to support giving them $1,000. I think that's more than enough to cover their fees that they would have to pay in trophies if that's what they're asking, and leaves them a little bit.
Further discussion? So, Councilor Javekov?
So is the motion to give them $1,000
Yes.
cash?
Yeah. So I agree. I think it's exactly, that's sport tourism, bringing people into your community, and if they've got 80 or 100, and it's going to be my intention to pay the $270 for the awards, and so I would ask, or like to have council consider if we could cut it to $750, and I'll pay the $250 or $270 for the awards out of my pocket, because I think it's a really great initiative that they've shown, and I'd like to do that on my bride's behalf.
Amendment.
Thank you. Seconded. Are you guys okay with that, to cut it to $750?
Yeah, that's a slippery slope.
I don't know. I don't
Comes
mind.
12 more applications for the
I don't mind.
trophies.
This is different. This is different. Bringing people to our community.
Keep those cards and letters coming in.
Yeah, let my bride know. Not getting a Christmas present, no. You ready for the question? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried, thank you. That's it for mayor's business. Anything else?
That's the
There
amendment.
was one more delegation
These are team.
for volleyball.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes. Sorry. U13 volleyball? It's your pleasure. Councilor Rogers?
I'd move that we give them their money.
It was $1,000?
They're asking for $1,000 for travel.
For travel.
15.
They're asking for 15.
1,500.
Oh, 1,500? I'd go 1,000.
Okay, seconded? Councilor Javetkov? Discussion? Councilor Schumann?
I'm voting against this. We have put our daughter into volleyball, club volleyball. It's not school volleyball, it's club volleyball. And we chose to allow our daughter to play club volleyball from grade 8 until grade 11. She didn't play grade 12 because she wanted to focus on her academics. It's what you sign on to. You sign on to the travel. You sign on to taking your kid if they are headed off to provincials. We took Emily all those years off to Edmonton or Calgary, and it's the price you pay when you put your kids into these club sports. Hockey players, parents pay for that. The judo kids pay for that. I mean, we make these choices. I don't think it's the choice of the whole community to pay for that travel cost. So I'm voting against it.
Thank you. Further, Councilor Javetkov?
Well, I agree with you 100%. For me, that's how I'd do it. But there are people whose kids would like to go, would like to play, but they can't afford it. So I see this as supplementing some of that.
Thank you. Councilor Schumann?
There are programs, Kids Sport, for example, we have sponsored registration fees in the past for volleyball players. And, you know, I look at little Michaela Love, who wants to go to guide camp every year. So she's out pounding the pavement, picking up bottles and doing her thing. When my kids were in rep soccer and in this rep volleyball, I mean, we fundraised. I get that some kids struggle more and have to fundraise more than others, but I just can't see that we're going to be able to do this over and over and over and over again, because it seems to be that we're, you know, there's 6 of them here today, and these are sending our kids off. It's not bringing the sports tourism model, bringing the people into our town to eat in our hotels, or stay in our hotels and eat in our restaurants and shop in our stores. This is something different, and as parents, this is what we sign on to when we allow our kids to join these groups.
Thank you. Councilor Rogers?
Agree with you 100%. Part of it is it's about, if we don't go to those events, how do you expect those people to come here? It's about reciprocation. Also, I just really would like to know how we are going to get a policy around this. Are we going to establish a policy? Because we rescinded one. Are we going to work on establishing one? Because if not, let's get rid of the money and not have it in the next budget. Perfect. Or let's make a decision at our
Budget vote's
meeting.
coming.
Let's make a decision at our next meeting that money that we have set aside, the $10,000 that's left, let's put it back into our general revenue. Let's put it back. Let's just get rid of it. Because if we're not going to do something, then like, what are we saving the money for? Because you know, as soon as we approve it for somebody else, like if a hockey team comes in and wants to go to provincials or go somewhere else, you know, obviously they're going, no. We all said no. So I don't know. I just don't know. It was a slippery slope. We slid down it. Now we're at the bottom. Let's figure out what we're doing.
Thank you. Councilor Javetkov?
This is an example where we could actually spend our budget before it's approved.
Exactly.
That's the problem that was identified with our process.
Thank you. Are you ready for the question? Motion is that we approve $1,000 for the U13 volleyball. All those in favor? Opposed? Defeated. That's it for,
So I didn't get the vote there.
it was 4-2.
It was 4-2?
I had 4-2.
Because Terry voted in favor of it.
I had, so,
I was against.
all those in favor of doing the 1,000? Opposed? So it's, sorry, 3-3. So it doesn't go. Yeah.
So that's
So it's
still
lost.
defeated.
Yeah.
Still lost.
Through
Duncan?
through your worship, I don't know if this is the appropriate time to introduce it, and Brenda
Not
will
if
tell
it's
me.
another travel request.
No, it's not. Yes.
You're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to go somewhere.
Yeah. Just as far as recycling, we have as part of the recommendation, we're going to bring forward a communication plan, and I just don't know if council would like to provide some information at the trade show this weekend.
Well, yeah, I think absolutely we should have the cart there and have a bit of a material so that we can at least prepare people that it's moving ahead in September and be prepared for it. Here's the cart, and we'll start to come
So maybe just a motion, just because everything that's been included in the trade show so far has come through motion, airport, fiscal gap, etc.
Okay.
If that's okay?
Sure.
Councillor Schuman, Councillor Wilbur? Yep.
So you will contact somebody to make sure that we know what it is exactly that is allowed to go in there, and we're not just making assumptions about what.
Yes, we will make sure they're approved products and they're handled properly as well.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? It's carried. Anything further? Brenda?
Your Worship, just a question in regards to policy on grants. Was there someone on council to have staff come forward a policy on that?
That's why I have my hand up.
I think there's a whole bunch of people that are going to want to see a policy for grants, so
Well, we
we'll,
need to
I don't
have
think we should even
something.
have one.
we're going to do some work on it.
Who are you?
Yeah, I move that we do some work around the policy for these grants. I can't even remember why we canceled our last one. What happened? Why did we do that?
So let's,
Well,
I know why, because I watched the video.
so we have a motion that we're
I'd
going
like to second that
seconded by
motion.
Councillor Wilbur. Go ahead.
I don't think that, like, that's the reason we rescinded that policy to begin with, because we were struggling with, like, who do we give the money to and who do we don't? And then I believe the conversation was around, well, why are we actually doing this? Let's rescind the policy. But we should have rescinded the money at the exact same time. So the money is there. So we rescinded the policy once. Why are we talking about bringing back another one? Let's just.
Well, we got some
forget
money,
it.
so-
We don't need to be giving the money away.
Duncan?
So through your worship, just one piece that I'll add to this is, as we work our way through this sport tourism, I don't believe this would be something included in there, but I would want those two processes synchronized, and so you probably won't see an updated grants policy until we know what that model is going to look like.
Because we will want to wait.
Councillor Wilbur?
Well, and to me, like, just given the decisions that we've made and talking about bringing something in and being about sports tourism, maybe that's what that policy needs to be about, is it's there for those bringing something into the community, not those going out. I think that was part of the discussion that we had before when we rescinded it, was what was the benefit the community was getting in us giving out these grants. So maybe that is the framework. I'm just throwing that out.
Yeah. Thank you. Councillor Rogers and Councillor Schuman?
Yeah, just one personal thought is if the city of Dawson Creek is going to give money away, I would think that it would be for, and it's to sports groups. I would be more inclined to support events coming to Dawson Creek rather than exporting that money.
And I think that's Duncan's point about the event sport tourism model, right?
But I don't think it's just sports.
Councillor Schuman?
Yeah, I'm trying to, like, we had it like a whole set of criteria, and there was, like, it sort of moved year to year where it focused on maybe arts and something else one year, and then the next year it moved on to sports, and
no one was applying.
no one was applying. We weren't giving away the money, and it was, I thought thought it was some, we thought maybe the criteria was to whatever for these groups to apply, or I don't remember.
Yeah, we'll
Council
go.
just wasn't giving it away.
We'll give. We'll do some work on it. So Duncan, you had a comment or no?
No, I have the policy, but it needs to mesh with the event or sport event model. It may not just apply to event, but you may want to have some consideration if it fits in their eligibility.
Exactly.
There's a number of criteria and a template that needs to be created.
We'll
and
move it
work on
forward, and we won't solve it today, but we will move it forward. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Diary?
Nothing to update, Your Worship.
Consent calendar, we've got a number of items. Motion to approve the consent. Any
Sure.
questions? Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Schumann. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Strategic priorities?
So through Your Worship, we've provided reports at the last couple meetings regarding our fiscal gap initiative. We will have a kiosk and a survey available online this week, and the kiosk will be at the trade show in which people can fill out that survey online, and we expect to have that information back to council in June. We also have our prioritization workshop June 18th as well.
Okay. Question and answer period?
No one has signed up, Your Worship.
Media? Guys, nothing?
What?
Not even a field house.
Councillor,
What's the matter with you guys?
Councillor McFadden?
My calendar says there's a school tour tomorrow at noon, but is everybody away? Am I the only one here?
You know, I was gonna be away, but I'm here now.
Okay.
So I'll come to
It is tomorrow at noon.
Yeah, they're coming tomorrow. They're doing a fire hall, and then they're coming to City Hall.
Okay,
So,
thank
good.
you.
Motion to recess to closed?
Sure.
All of you?
All of us.
Seconded by all of you?
Writing everything by
Moved by
myself.
Councillor Javetkov, seconded by Councillor McFadden. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Our budget meeting of City Council for Monday, April 16th to order. Our first order of business are minutes, and the minutes of our budget meeting of council of February 26, 2018 for adoption. Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Schumann. Any errors or omissions in the minutes? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Today's item for discussion is item 3.1. We have report 18047 from the Chief Financial Officer, which is our 2018 5-year financial plan summary. And we have 2 recommendations within the report. And I think what I would like to do is if we could do the first recommendation, and that gets it on the table for us for discussion, and then we'll deal with the second piece. So, on recommendation number 1, Councillor Schumann. For discussion, seconded. Seconded, Councillor McFadden. And discussion. So I'll open it up to council for your thoughts, your input, discussion. Councillor Javetkov?
I was just wondering about if maybe I should just make a motion.
Well, we got this one on for discussion right now.
Oh, okay. Well, I was just thinking that, you know, we've got a consultant investigating our operational costs coming up. And we're always struggling for capital. And like was mentioned on the second page, many capital investment submissions will not have sufficient funding. If we modified the ratio for our Peace River Agreement money, right now it's at 60% for capital and 40% for operations. If we went to 70-30, at least that would be a target for, you know, identifying some additional capital money for, you know, for capital projects. I mean, it's a struggle. We know it's a struggle this year. It's a struggle last year. You know, we didn't spend any money on our streets. This year we're spending a limited amount in accordance with the study that we had on our streets. So we're short of money. But I was just wondering what the thoughts would be on changing that ratio with a look towards next year.
Okay. Duncan?
So through your worship, I think if that's something council wants to consider, we have some work ahead of us to understand what those operational costs are and that prioritization. So I wouldn't say we can't do that. I would say it might be early right now. I guess if you did decide to make that change, we would have to adjust this document to reflect that, and we would probably have to start pulling some of those operational costs out now, which I think is a little preemptive right now.
Yeah, for me, I think there's 2 or 3 areas, and we aspirationally, to me, I think that's a target, a view, an approach we have to try to move towards. And so you got to find more revenue in order to do that, to move that target around. And how do you find that, as well as impacting then some decisions around our services we provide and impacting the cost of and the amount of money you're spending on those services in order to try to get to there. And I think that's, to me now, I really hope that as we go through this next 2 or 3 months with the community engaging in this fiscal gap discussion and getting our community engaged in that topic with them in terms of saying, what do you see as those things that are absolutely critical, crucial, and you see as being important, and what are those things we need to or may consider looking at? And that gives you then, I think, the opportunity to then start to find that additional revenue that you can move that operating money out of that capital from Peace River Agreement. So I don't disagree with you at all. I just don't know that we can do it today until we give them some direction on that. Duncan?
Yeah, so just quickly, yeah, I mean, if we were to change that ratio, we would reduce the operating funds available, and we would have to remove something to balance this.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not considering it for this budget. I think, we've gone to the point on this budget where it's, beyond a point of return, but I'm just thinking, like, we've got McIntosh doing this investigation, and I don't know if he's got a target or if he's got any kind of an idea of what we're looking at or where we think we can get to for the 2019 budget. But it might be a way of, giving him a target, as well as, what we're doing with the fiscal gap stuff.
And it might be worthwhile for us to take that into consideration and have start to put that data in there in terms of, for council, to say, if we move that, here's what it absolutely means in pure numbers, hard dollars, of moving that percentage around for us in terms of additional money we would need to find in order to transition that money out of our operating into the capital program. And I really hope that from this next 2 or 3 months that we really start to get some focus in there from the fiscal gap engagement with the community, and provide some direction then through administration, as well as the work that Duncan's going to do with McIntosh in terms of operational efficiencies. But yeah, hopefully, because I think we need to do that, and by this summer, this fall, going into we need to preparation for the 2019 budget have that direction. No question. Any other thoughts from council on the 5-year financial plan summary? The one for me in the popped out a little bit was the levy increase per class and the assumptions of the major industry increasing even more. And so I just looked at that, and I always want to try to ensure that our heavy and light industrial, major and light industrial rate is competitive, and it's the lowest in the region and in the province probably by a ways, even though we've made a pretty big impact on it this year, that I didn't see increasing that again in future years any significant amount. And so I just raised that as a topic or a point for me that popped out for me. Any other comments for folks, or? So are you ready for the question on receiving this for discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Second recommendation then is the forecast assumptions used in preparing the 5-year plan as presented within the report for number 18047 from the Chief Financial Officer, then be approved.
So moved.
Councillor Wilbur, Councillor Schumann, discussion. Comments? Duncan, any comments, final comments for us?
I would say the only comment I have, final comment, is the report put forward indicates the amount of capital that we should be working on, and it indicates the amount of capital that we have available funding, and we'll be working with the amount of funding available, and that's what will be in that plan, and that's how this budget balances. And then we have a lot of work that we're going to undertake this year through core service review and also some long-term capital planning and alignment to look at what that, how that kind of flushes out a little bit, and that fiscal gap work as well to see where the community priorities are.
Yeah. I think for me, the final statement I'd like to make, and it was through this budget process this year, was really evident to me that how important it's going to be for us moving forward when you see, as Councillor Javetkov mentioned earlier, about the limited capital budget this year that we're going to be doing, and we need to increase revenues for the city and decrease some spending in order to continue to sustain it. And I think that's kind of the focus around the fiscal gap that we've been dealing with now over the last, talking about over the last 3 or 4 years. I think every year is just heightening to me the importance of us getting that capital budget to a point where we have a reasonable amount of money going into our capital every year to sustain the infrastructure we have, and making some decisions on where does that revenue come from, and it's going to come from either increasing revenues from other sources or decreasing some services. And I think step one is looking at that service structure, and then in 19 we'll have to, I think, really be moving forward with some really engaged discussions with our community and at this table in terms of how do we ensure we have the capacity to move forward for the services we're providing today, that we continue to be able to provide in the future, and have the necessary capital in place to sustain the infrastructure for the community. And there's some big decisions coming in terms of fire halls and all those other things that we have ahead of us, and maintaining roads and sidewalks and facilities. And it's we've made a lot of this city should be very proud of the amenities and services and infrastructure and cost of all that stuff for people, but it can't sustain itself without having some change in how that stuff gets funded. Councillor Javetkov, you had a point?
Yeah, like, you know, tax increases are, you know, what we kind of gravitate to, and to increase the taxes, I think 1% is 160,000 or in that neighborhood. So if you look at a 10% tax increase, you've got $1.5 million. Well, $1.5 million still is not near enough to deal with what we're dealing with. So does that mean you increase it by 20% or 30%? We struggled this year with increasing the taxes 3%. We opted not to do that. So, you know, we need to look at everything. We have to look at reducing our expenses. We have to look at new revenues, fees for service, and tax increases are going to be in the, you know, in the formula.
Yeah.
So somehow, you know, going through this process that we've tackled this summer, it's all got to be investigated.
Yeah.
You know, and I did a calculation on the taxes that we get from the new industrial subdivisions that were put in since 2003, since the big Encana sale. The taxes that we generate from those 3 subdivisions, that's the one on Highway 49, the Heritage, the Airport, and Wayne Hansen. And I believe the taxes that we get from those 3 subdivisions, and they're pretty substantial subdivisions, is less than $1.5 million. Now, out of that $1.5 million, there's a significant amount of maintenance that goes back into those subdivisions. So to think that we can grow out of this issue, out of this dilemma, it's not going to happen, because we won't duplicate the development that we've had since 2003, probably over the next 40, 50 years.
Yeah.
So we've got to have a pretty in-depth look at what we're doing.
Yeah, like I say, I think it's increased revenue and revenue from all sources in terms of how we manage that. And look at our services, look at our operating costs. So. Anyway, thank you to Adam for getting this next step done on our financial plan. Duncan and all the staff obviously work hard for the last 3 or 4 or 5 months putting the budget together and getting it to this stage of nearing completion, and we are nearing completion because we got about 2 weeks left before we give it our final approval, so thank you. Ready for the question? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Anybody else have anything else? Motion, Councillor Javetkov?
Just one question. The issue of starting our budgeting process earlier so that we get a completed budget or an approved budget in January, February, where are we at? We talked about that a couple times, but I don't remember where we're at.
This year will be a little bit of a swing because you got the election October 20th for municipal elections, so I'm not sure how. Duncan, have you got any thoughts on that?
So Adam and I had done some work on this. Unfortunately, we'll have a new CFO, so I'd like to broach that with the new CFO and put together a bit of a plan. The election is going to be in the middle of it, October 20th, but there is some preliminary work we can do. We'd like to bring forward that timeline, but we need to get our new CFO in and get someone hired, and we'll work on that.
It's going to be a struggle, I would assume, this year because you're going to be May, June, your summer months, you lose a couple months with July, August, September, October, you're into the election. So it's going to be a difficult year, and with a new CFO coming into the fold. So anyway, there's lots of reasons for us to continue to escalate it and make sure we engage in terms of getting as much information ahead of time. Because I honestly believe this, I felt it this year more than I have since I've been the mayor, is the heightened sensitivity about budgeting now and what we have to do. So, yes, your answer is yes?
Yes.
Working on it.
Councillor Rogers?
Yeah, the only thing about 2019 budget is basically going to be status quo to what this one is right now, because a new council coming in, you know, that's what I was told anyways when I came in as a new council. Basically, the budget was already done. You didn't have a choice.
We just told that to you. We didn't normally say that to everybody.
Well, I believe you.
So it works.
Thanks, everybody. Motion to adjourn. Councillor Javetkov, McFadden, all in favor, opposed, carried. Thank you. Thanks very much. Drive safely.